I don't play with lions. I don't play with those. I don't even do roller coasters. Wow.
Well, hello.
Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and today's show has the potential to be pretty explosive, especially when Cenk comes in for the second hour, where we will very likely disagree. Actually, I have no idea, but apparently, for some on the left, having a Nazi tattoo on your person for decades, that's totally okay, and you can totally find excuses to work your way around it. Not wanting to be sexually assaulted by a homeless person on drugs in your neighborhood? Don't talk about that publicly, because maybe that'll make you the Nazi. Anyway, we'll get to that in the second hour. Coming in hot, aren't I? But before we get to anything in the second hour, obviously we have a whole first hour for you where we're gonna talk about some foreign policy, a pretty explosive story out of a UK publication indicating that the United States military has been a little more involved in what's been going down in Gaza than our government would have you believe. So I'll give you some of that reporting. And there's just a lot to get to. So why don't we get started with this?
We know that Hamas has to comply with the deal, and if Hamas doesn't comply with the deal, very bad things are going to happen. But I'm not going to do what the President of the United States has thus far refused to do, which is put an explicit deadline on it, because a lot of this stuff is difficult. A lot of this stuff is unpredictable. You basically have two regions in Gaza, one of which is relatively safe, I wouldn't say very safe, and one of which is incredibly dangerous. And part of ensuring that we get to a durable peace is to broaden the scope of the area that's safe.
The most dangerous thing in Gaza at the moment is Israeli occupation with US backing. And it appears that what you're hearing in that whole spiel by our Vice President, JD Vance, is nothing more than a bunch of bullcrap. Now, why do I say that? Because we know what's being planned in Gaza. We just shared a story, an in-depth story out of Israeli media this week indicating that you have the who's who of US billionaires planning to essentially steal the land in Gaza. Part of it will belong to Israel apparently, but a huge portion of it will be used as a tax-free haven for tech billionaires and other billionaires here in the United States. They plan on building AI centers, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Steve Witkoff, all sorts of people who are either in the Trump administration or in the periphery of the Trump administration are involved. And now we have the Wall Street Journal confirming some of that reporting to some extent. Although whether they know it or not, they're hiding the ball, at least a portion of it. So let's get to the details. So Israel and the Trump administration are apparently hatching a plan, according to the Wall Street Journal, that would only allow for reconstruction of the Gaza Strip in the area that is occupied by the Israelis. Right now, about 53% of the Gaza Strip is occupied by the IDF. It looks like that's never gonna change. In fact, it's very likely that that occupation is going to expand further in the coming years. But for now, the big argument that we're hearing from Jared Kushner, an unofficial White House advisor, is that, Hamas isn't disarming, so we're gonna go ahead and just take that land from the Palestinians. He's not saying that out loud, but that's essentially what's happening here. The 53% that's occupied by the Israelis, we're gonna go ahead and do some reconstruction work there. And this is somehow going to convince Hamas to disarm, as Hamas and the Palestinian civilians, ordinary innocent people who didn't ask for this, they don't want this, but they're treated as if they themselves are terrorists. You're gonna tell me that they're going to live in a wasteland that was created by Israel with the use of American taxpayer funded bombs, and they're just gonna sit back and let it happen, and Hamas is gonna be weakened by it? I don't think that's the way these things work. So the idea was openly floated by Vice President J.D. Vance and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner during this press conference in Israel that took place today. Reconstruction, again, would only take place on the Israeli-controlled side. So do the governments who have committed providing some of the funding for the reconstruction know that essentially their money is gonna go toward helping Israel build its empire through helping them essentially construct new homes and a whole new civilization on stolen Palestinian land? Did they know that? And if they did know that, are they aware that they're some of the worst scummy people on the planet? Because so far, for all the people who just have like a basic, superficial, surface level understanding of this whole situation, they were under the impression that no, the reconstruction is gonna be for the whole of the Gaza Strip on behalf of the Palestinian people. Now, I didn't believe that from day one, because I'm not stupid. I pay attention to the news and I go a little deeper than what New York Times or the Washington Post is reporting on this. So for the Palestinian side that's governed by Hamas, no reconstruction will take place unless Hamas is disarmed. Do you guys remember when Israel told all of us that as soon as all the hostages are returned by Hamas, the war's over? Do you guys remember that? Did it work out that way? Because as far as I know, more airstrikes and more annihilation and slaughter has been taking place. Not to the same insane extent as before, but it doesn't look like Israeli forces are interested in withdrawing from Gaza at all. They have all the living hostages. All of the remaining deceased hostages in Gaza are trapped under tons of rubble, which of course is the IDF's doing. And they don't even want to allow the heavy machinery into the Gaza Strip so Hamas can recover said bodies. I mean, who cares about the Palestinians that remain trapped under the rubble, am I right? Laughably, Kushner wants you to believe that the Palestinians will be welcomed back to the area of Gaza, the 53% that's currently being occupied by the Israelis, because he thinks we're stupid. And I don't think Americans should allow themselves to be insulted by an unofficial White House advisor who's nothing more than a disgusting lowlife who has moved up the ladder due to nepotism, making all sorts of shady deals with the Saudis. And by the way, all these Arab leaders, pathetic, okay? The United States government disgusts me over what they have greenlit in the annihilation of the Gaza Strip and the persecution of the Palestinian people, full stop. But all these Arab leaders, okay, bowing their heads to a genocidal government because the United States is bribing you to, it's disgusting. In reality, over time, Israel could take more territory from Hamas's control, while at the same time strengthening a security buffer between Israeli towns near the border with Gaza that were attacked during the Hamas-led October 7th, 2023 assault that sparked the war. So where are the Palestinians gonna go? Well, right close to, I mean, we don't know how many Palestinians are left really. They still won't allow any international journalists, like actual journalists, to go visit and do some original reporting. There are still journalists on the ground, Palestinian journalists, the ones who haven't been slaughtered by Israel yet. But this story is kind of amazing, right? Because like this argument about refugee crises, mass migration situations, the very things that lily white Westerners like to complain about because they're terrified of Islamification. They're scared of the Muslims. They're so scared of the Muslims. As they hand over the resources from their own countries and nod along as Israel conducts its genocide and displaces millions of people. Where are those millions of people gonna go, do you think? Where are they supposed to go? I know that the Trump White House has tried to do some negotiations with countries like Sudan, maybe Somalia. Maybe Somalia, the country we've been bombing for several decades, will take them in. It's disgusting. All of this is so disgusting. If you are an American, your money went toward annihilation, land theft, and a refugee resettlement program. An unjust one, to be completely fair and honest here about what's going on. This is so crazy. How's your healthcare doing? Were you able to afford that doctor's bill? Oh, you just You just popped out a baby a week ago. You better get back to work. Back to the mines. We gotta work hard. We gotta, of course, make a living for the genocidal Israeli government. So disgusting. According to the Journal's reporting, there's more. White House officials said Kushner is the driving force behind the split reconstruction plan. I'm sure he is. Having devised it alongside Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who even I was stupid enough to be fooled by early on in Trump's second term and thinking that he actually wants peace because he wants to do the right thing. What they want to do is drive the Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip. They want peace, yes, because it's really hard to, profit off land that doesn't belong to you when you have a war going on. They said Kushner has briefed Trump and Vance on the plan and has secured their support, which doesn't surprise me at all because they stand to profit from the AI centers and whatever other ridiculous plans they have for the future of the Gaza Strip. Arab mediators who are pathetic say they're alarmed by the plan. Ooh, they're alarmed. Are they writing strong letters to the US government as well? Are they also wagging their fingers like Biden did when he was president and didn't like how the Israelis were handling or prosecuting this war in Gaza? Yeah, save your alarm to yourself. I don't believe anyone is alarmed about anything unless they're willing to put their foot down and put action behind those concerns or those alarms. Arab governments strongly oppose the idea of dividing Gaza. Well, it's happened, it's already happened. 53% of it is already occupied by the Israelis, and they want more, and they're gonna get more. They're gonna get more. Because the Arabs are weak. The US government is either bribed or blackmailed by the Israelis. This is how they play, and this is how they accumulate power, steal land, and then play the victim when they're the victims of a terrorist attack. I mean, it's awe-inspiring, it really is. Because any other human being functions with the understanding that every action you take is gonna have a reaction, a consequence. So for instance, if I, let's say, decide I like my neighbor's home more than I like my home, but I'm gonna keep my home. I'm gonna keep my home, okay? That's the land of the Kasparians. I'm gonna keep that. But my neighbor, beautiful 2-story home, nice railing around, nice white picket fence. I'm gonna go in and take it. I'm gonna go take it. Now, anyone who believes in justice, who believes in fairness would say, Anna, you can't do that. That's not your property. You can't steal it like that. But how are you gonna make that argument here in the United States when our government, regardless of whether it's a Democratic administration or Republican administration, has been aiding and abetting the land grabs that have been taking place in the Middle East? They have no leg to stand on. You wanna criticize human rights abuses, whether it be in freaking China or Russia or Ukraine or whatever. I don't wanna hear a damn word out of any single politician in the US government that has aided and abetted the atrocities that we have been watching with our own 2 eyes, hearing with our own 2 ears over the last 2 years. Many Arab governments believe the enclave needs to be overseen by the Palestinian Authority, which governs much of the West Bank. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is strongly opposed to allowing it a role. And he'll get what he wants because the Israelis always get what they want. As long as the top military superpower on this globe, the United States, backs them in any atrocity they want to commit, they will commit the atrocities. The Palestinian Authority has been so deferential to the Israelis in the West Bank. They govern the West Bank, and they've lost credibility with the Palestinians because they've done nothing for the Palestinians. And even they aren't good enough for Benjamin Netanyahu. And why is that? Is it because he's actually fearful that the Palestinian Authority is really some terror organization that's gonna threaten the lives of the precious Israelis? No, of course not. Because he doesn't want the Palestinians on that land. Whether it's Gaza, whether it's the West Bank, he's coming for you. And here's the absolutely genius thinking in Israel. The plan to build up Israeli-controlled areas in Gaza could weaken Hamas politically while enabling Israel's military to conduct operations that further erode the group's ability to fight, said Ofer Gutterman, a senior researcher at the Tel Aviv-based Institute for National Security Studies. Oh, totally. I mean, that's how things work. So let's say I were the person who just witnessed my home getting stolen from me, and all of my family members have been slaughtered by the very individual or individuals who stole my home. As they're remodeling the home that used to belong to me but was stolen by me, I'm just gonna watch it and just feel, less angry about it. I'm not gonna want any revenge. I'm not gonna want to retaliate. It's just gonna weaken me. That's how the world works. These people are total geniuses. So look, you should also find the idea that the Israelis are acting in good faith dubious, ridiculous, because they never operate in good faith. They haven't operated in good faith at all over the last 2 years. They have lied to us. They have lied to everyone globally. They have bombed every hospital in Gaza. They have destroyed every university in Gaza. They have told Palestinian refugees, they've displaced them, told them to evacuate to certain parts of the Gaza Strip for safety, and then they bombed them. That's who the Israelis are, the IDF, not the civilians. When I say the Israelis, okay, this is for Canary Mission and all the other people who like to pretend as though my commentary has to do with powerless people who are civilians and don't really have much of a say. Based on those mass protests, didn't have much of a say over what the Israeli government was up to. So when I say the Israelis, I mean the military and I mean the government, the people who have power, okay? They have not acted in good faith at all. And in fact, the only area in which I can believe them is when they're in Israeli media and they're just brazenly saying what they plan to do. How they can't get enough of the slaughter in Gaza. How they want to take that land. How as soon as all the living hostages are returned, they plan to go right back to annihilation. I choose to believe them when they actually tell the truth, and they do tell the truth in Israeli media. Here's what the Knesset was up to today. This is according to Reuters. Israel's parliament gives initial nod to occupied West Bank annexation. West Bank has nothing to do with Hamas. West Bank is governed by the weak, pathetic, cowering Palestinian Authority. And I don't know what kind of excuse the Israelis can possibly give to justify this brazen land theft, but that's what they're gonna do. And that's what they voted on literally today. Right-wing lawmakers voted on Wednesday to pass, in its preliminary reading, a bill that would apply Israeli sovereignty to all West Bank settlements, as well as another more limited bill to annex a major city settlement. The broader bill requires Israel to apply its laws and sovereignty to the areas of settlement in Judea and Samaria to establish the status of these areas as an inseparable part of the sovereign state of Israel. Now, this isn't a done deal yet, but it will be. It still has a few more obstacles that I think really aren't much obstacles when you consider the makeup of the current Israeli government. The bills must still pass 3 additional votes, and will now be referred to the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee for further consideration. People get really upset because they're entitled pricks when I talk about the Israeli government the way I do. Now, if this were any other government, if this were the Armenian government, okay, the Armenian government, if our government was this obsessed with stealing the resources of my fellow Americans to help Armenia commit mass slaughter, I would be talking about this the exact same way. I've got no dog in the fight. You guys understand that? I'm not a supporter of Hamas. People get mad at me for that too. I don't really care. What they did on October 7th was disgusting. Killing innocent civilians is always wrong. That is not resistance, okay? But I'm also not gonna provide cover for the 2 straight years and more of endless slaughter, endless annihilation, endless land theft. And that's just over the last 2 years. We've been talking about what's been going down over the last several decades in that region of the world. And the bad actor is not all of the various Muslim countries that the United States has been bombing for decades. No. The bad actor is the country that has led to the instability in that entire region, and that's Israel. Because it's never enough for them. It's never enough. The borders that they already had, which were already incredibly unjust, that still wasn't enough. And Lebanon, they're bombing you for a reason. Even though there's a ceasefire that they signed, that ceasefire is supposed to be in place, they are bombing southern Lebanon as they try to construct all of the buildings that have been bombed by Israel previously because they intend to take that land. They haven't withdrawn from southern Lebanon because they intend to take that land. Can we just stop pretending? I'm so sick of the pretending. If you want to pretend, then go ahead. I'm not pretending. I see what's happening. It's super obvious. And what's amazing to me is I tell you exactly what's gonna happen. It happens. And no one who denied it or doubted it comes back to me and says, you know what, Anna, you were right. Like Jillian Michaels never comes back to say, you know what, Anna, you were right. This is an expansionist land grab project by the Israelis. They just moved the goalpost to something even more disgusting and extreme. And don't worry, the Israelis will accomplish that too. We'll be right back. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our first social break of the day. Let's start with our members section. Asimov's prophet says, of course, the US military has been working in Gaza. That's their training ground for when they police American citizens. I mean, certainly when you kind of sit idly by and watch our military brutalize other people, you should expect that to come back to us. And in some ways, I mean, through the way some of these ICE raids are being carried out, I think that's definitely already happening. So definitely that's a valid point. Nerd Ferguson says, it's much worse than you taking your neighbor's home, obviously. But I'm giving you a very simplified example that anyone can understand. Stealing someone else's property like that, stealing someone else's land like that is unjust. We all know it's unjust. But some way, somehow, there are still Americans, I mean, the whole of our government for the most part, but a significant portion of Americans on the right, older right wingers, who think this is totally okay because they've been brainwashed for decades to think, no, the real threat in the Middle East are those dangerous Muslims. Never asking themselves, hey, how did ISIS come about? Or more importantly, hey, why is it that there was this concerted effort to provide weaponry to the rebels in Syria to oust, yes, a dictator, but a dictator who at least allowed various diverse religious groups to practice their religion in peace? Bashar al-Assad was awful in so many ways, no doubt. But you want to know the reason why the US didn't like Bashar al-Assad? It wasn't because he was mistreating the people of Syria. They couldn't care less about that. It was the fact that Bashar al-Assad wasn't deferential to Israel. Now we have an Al-Qaeda terrorist as the new leader of Syria. If you don't remember, Al-Qaeda conducted and carried out the most deadly and devastating terrorist attack on US soil. And we welcomed an former Al-Qaeda terrorist onto US soil just a few weeks ago, visited New York for the UN General Assembly. How are people not angry about that? Sorry, nerd, let me get back to it. Nerd Ferguson says, it's you destroying your neighbor's home while they're still inside of it, just so you can build a new home on that property, not to live in, but purely to profit off of so someone else can live on that property.
Al-Qaeda! Antifa!
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Make It Make Sense writes in and says, I think the Nazi comparison isn't the best fit. I'm now convinced maybe a USA comparison is better for Israel. Tell me this doesn't sound like how the US expanded west and handled native tribes. Yeah, and that was disgusting, deplorable behavior. But while there was certainly all sorts of atrocities committed by, those who expanded west against the Native Americans, eventually there was an effort to make amends. And now, can you imagine if today the United States was trying to find a way to annihilate and purge Native Americans from American soil? We'd find that disgusting, right? But we're funding it in the Middle East. Constantine Caveira says, I live in New York and Cuomo has the worst ads. It opens with someone saying, I don't always agree with Andrew Cuomo, but I know he can get the job done. Agreed. I disagree with him and he'll be able to accomplish those things I disagree with. Dude, that I can't believe he felt entitled to be the next mayor, considering what his record looked like as governor of New York. Anyway, let's get to our next story.
It's disappointing when you look at some of those polls about where people talk about socialism, even though if you ask the question, give me a country where socialism has worked, there's not an answer. And give me a city where it's really worked, there's not an answer.
Well. The very people who totally defended and provided cover for crony capitalism in America are now worried and shocked and chagrined that people are embracing socialism in the US. Now, it turns out that when you make this country unlivable for people who aren't rich, they're gonna be angry about it and they're gonna look to other systems, economic systems, systems of government for answers, for solutions. And the fact that Bret Baier doesn't realize that blows my mind. And it's honestly the fact that he is who he is, he works at where he works, and runs in circles or runs within circles of people who are just totally disconnected from the reality of the vast majority of Americans. I mean, a ton of Americans are currently crippled with credit card debt because they can't afford to make ends meet and they have to charge their groceries on their credit card bill. So, yeah, people are not turned off by Zohran Mamdani and his labeling himself as a socialist. You should ask why that is instead of fear-mongering about it. So look, he failed to explain why Americans are turning away from capitalism, and we're gonna get to that in just a second, but first some context. So Bret Baier, who among the cohort of Fox News personalities, I think tries to be more of a straight journalist, but still, of course, as you can see, injects his opinion into some of these segments, was referencing the following segment from NBC News.
Gallup has been testing this for years, for decades, really. Basic attitudes towards socialism and capitalism. These are the latest numbers that they came up with. Overall, asking folks, do you have a positive view of socialism? 39% of Americans said yes. 54% said they had a positive view of capitalism. But look at the party split here among Democrats. Look at socialism. That's nationally again. 2/3 of Democrats nationally, not talking New York City, but across the country, say to Gallup they have a favorable, positive view of socialism. Only 42% of capitalism. Go back to 2010 here. Democrats were basically split then, 15 years ago. Positive, negative on capitalism. And look at that number. It kind of stayed steady. And then in the last 5 years, it's fallen down to 42%, barely over 40%. And in that same time, take a look at what's happened with socialism. Again, Democratic Party attitudes here. 2010, it was 50-50. It's ticked up. And now in the last couple of readouts, 2/3 of Democrats saying they have a positive image of socialism.
Again, when people feel that the system that they're living and operating under is doing nothing for them, and in fact, it feels like that system is crushing them, they're gonna look for other solutions. Which is why in the, I don't know, since the 70s, as the quality of life for Americans has steadily decreased, you've had people like Bret Baier and people in cable news, in mainstream media, consistently provide cover for the very system that's been crushing people. They had an opportunity to talk about, hey, maybe we should do something about regulations to prevent these monopolies from forming. Maybe we should do something about the fact that, and this is a story I'm currently investigating and working on, it's blowing my mind. You know those luxury high rises that have all those units that sit empty for a long period of time, and you're wondering, like, how are the developers just allowing these units to sit empty? How are they, like, they're losing money. You would think they'd want to rent it out. It turns out that they're charging fees that are not refundable every time someone wants to apply for one of those units. It can be anywhere from $45 to $60 per application. And they just keep rejecting applications, but they don't refund the money. Seems like a bit of a scam, doesn't it? Now, at the same time, the property appreciates in value in this insane housing market. So it's a win-win for the developers. And why aren't our politicians, whether it's on a local level or federal level, doing something to stop that kind of scam behavior from happening? Because obviously we have a shortage of housing. If we have empty, vacant units, I think the developers or the landlords should feel compelled to rent them out, no? This is nuts, but anyway, these are the types of, I'm giving you a very specific example, but housing obviously is an impossible situation for so many Americans. Credit card debt crushing Americans. Student loan debt for a long time crushing Americans, but not every American. That's a specific demographic of people in the country who are having a really hard time paying off those loans, yes, but also realizing that that college education isn't necessarily going to give them what they need in terms of a high enough income to make ends meet, especially in the age of AI, automation, you get the picture. Coders, remember when Hillary Clinton said that we should teach all those people who work in coal mines to code? Learn to code. Yeah, coders are losing their jobs at a record pace because of AI. Yesterday, Larry Elder posted the following, which was a plane labeled Mamdani that was about to crash into the World Trade Center, or a building at least, saying, and New York City. Just because Mamdani's Muslim. Can you imagine if any other public figure did the same and put Israel on that plane? I know it would happen. So as you can tell, conservative commentators are happy to bash socialism, but they're not addressing the big question, right? So what is driving Democratic voters away from our current economic situation? So here are some of the reasons, okay? I've given you some specific reasons, but I think what's also important to focus on here is some of this new reporting over at the Wall Street Journal. The average cost of a family health insurance plan is now $27,000. Cool, totally affordable, not a big deal, right? The data is from a survey that was carried out by KFF, And if you take a look at this chart, you'll see how health insurance costs have gone up since 2010. That year, employers paid a little less than $10,000 per family health insurance plan. And workers contributed a little more than $4,000 per year. But this year, employers were paying over $20,000 per family health insurance plan. And workers are paying just shy of $7,000 per year. And remember, we're talking about people who are fortunate enough to be employed right now and fortunate enough to be employed full-time at a company that offers benefits. Not a lot of people, well, a lot of people do have that privilege, luckily, but many Americans don't. We literally have tens of millions of Americans who don't have any healthcare coverage at all. The cost of health insurance increased 6% from the year before and builds on 2 prior years of 7% gains. The cost is rising faster than inflation. And really, the only politician in Congress that I've seen make a big deal about this is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now look, Democrats are holding up the government funding bill because they want an extension on the Affordable Care Act subsidies so people's premiums don't double, and I do give them credit for that. But I also discredit their efforts when they start tacking on a bunch of other issues that muddies the water and makes their strategy less sound. Keep it simple, stupid. It's like the Democrats forgot how to do politics, but anyway. So according to the Wall Street Journal, health insurance costs are rising due to increased spending on healthcare, and that's because higher rates of medical conditions like cancer for working class Americans is becoming an issue, right? More and more Americans are developing cancer. Increased hospital prices, so hospitals are charging more for their services, and more expensive treatments like GLP-1s, AKA weight loss treatments like Ozempic. Now that's the off-label use for it. It's also for diabetes patients. Now, these higher costs are hitting small businesses the absolute hardest. More than half of small business owners reported that health insurance costs increased by 10% or more this year, according to a survey of 336 small businesses conducted in October. It would be great to live in a country where your employer is not responsible for your healthcare coverage. And Americans don't feel stuck working at a company they don't want to work for merely because they need healthcare. I want to live in a country where we actually have freedom, and that's just not the case here. The problem goes far beyond health insurance. Our citizens are starting to give up entirely on the entire concept of the American dream. And here's what the Wall Street Journal reported just last month. Nearly 70% of people said they believe the American dream, that if you work hard, you will get ahead, no longer holds true or never did. The highest level in nearly 15 years of surveys. Democrats felt more negative about the economy than Republicans did. I don't want you to mistake that as, oh, well, it's because Republicans are rich and greedy. That's not the case. We're talking about ordinary people here, and they're not doing well either. I do think that if your preferred party is in charge, you think things are going really well when the other side thinks that things are going poorly. It certainly was the case during the Biden administration when Democratic voters thought the economy was like, oh, it's so good. The economy is so good. Okay, it wasn't. It actually wasn't. People were severely underemployed. Inflation was disastrous. You just have to call a spade a spade. I think what's happening now is that you have Trump in charge, and a lot of Republican voters are like, everything's great, Trump's in charge, the economy is booming. 55% of Republicans, as well as 90% of Democrats, held a negative view of prospects for themselves and their children. So even in the case of Republicans, the majority of them not really happy, not jazzed about the current economic situation in the United States. But don't worry. We're preparing that $3.8 billion check for Israel as we speak. Every year, it's our commitment to a foreign country that has committed atrocities in the Middle East, in Gaza, in the West Bank, and it's never ending. They're still bombing southern Lebanon. So, sorry, don't mean to get mired in more foreign policy, but just kind of getting back to the topic at hand, for Bret Baier, does it make sense to be scared? Sure, you can be scared if you're terrified of socialism. I personally think a mixed economy makes the most sense. I think when you introduce a profit motive into the healthcare system, yeah, that greed obviously is going to supersede what's best for the well-being of the people that the system is supposed to serve. But rather than just getting scared and complaining about it, why don't we do some self-reflection and reconsider the crony capitalism that a lot of people, a lot of elites in this country have provided cover for so long? If they were under the impression that you can just crush the majority of the population for decades and nothing bad will come of that, obviously they're mistaken. And right now, as we speak, we have the federal government looting this country, stealing money from American taxpayers and the future of this country to fund all sorts of garbage, whether it's a freaking White House ballroom, which we don't need, or another war in Latin America, which we also don't need. So hopefully that's helpful to Bret Baier. It's probably not. Probably didn't listen to a single word of that. It's okay. If you don't want socialism, then you should fix the disgusting broken system that Americans have been dealing with for many decades now. We'll be right back. All right, Marco Antonio writes in and says, Israel doesn't want peace, they want land for greater Israel. Thank you. I mean, just say it, keep it simple. That's the reality, that is the reality. I think the reason why I'm so annoyed today is that aside from having to witness the atrocities that we've all witnessed in Gaza over the last 2 years, the gaslighting continues. And there's never a moment where people look back to like the lies that were told last month or last week. Call it out. Once you return the hostages, this is all over. No, it's not. I remember being on Piers Morgan's show debating this soft-spoken, pathetic excuse for a general. He's like, all Hamas needs to do is return the hostages and this is over. And I like lost it on him. How could you not? Told him that's a lie and you know it. And he just smirked because it was a lie and he did know it. Hitomi Honda says, they will be forever cursed on that land. They will lose it all, including their minds. How do you feel safe on blood-soaked, stolen land? And then if something happens, if they're attacked in some way, they cry victim. Well, what did you think was gonna happen? Are people just supposed to like stand by as you annihilate their families and steal their land? Would anyone listening to this respond to it that way? I wouldn't respond to it that way. The great Mandini says, can I just say how awesome and not surprising it is to find out that Anna loves Tool? Do you like Tool? Tool's good, right? Are you kidding me? One of my favorite bands to see in concert. Oh my God, they're so talented. Also check out Pussifier Anna on a Tool spinoff. I haven't heard of them. I'll definitely check that out. So the drummer for Tool has a bunch of other side bands, and I saw him recently at this really great venue in LA that's been around since the 70s called the Baked Potato. Watching him drum in real life is just, it blows your mind. He's really, really good. KL says capitalism is great. Capitalism does not include allowing corporations to bribe our government, putting their financial interests over the people's interests. That's the problem. Yeah, I don't want to live in a communist country. I don't think we'll ever be there, luckily. But I do think that there are some sectors of our economy that it's just dripping with greed. I mean, the airline industry is another perfect example of this. Like where they intentionally overbook flights, They make it harder and harder for you to get to your gate, like in time before they close it. They make the gate cutoff time further and further away from the takeoff time. It's ridiculous. Like there's so much greed and cronyism in our system. Rather than rooting that out, they've allowed that to stand and people are sick of it. I'm not surprised by anything that's happening right now at all. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Anna Kasparian with you. We've got one more segment before Cenk joins us. So I wanted to talk about this. I wouldn't typically care enough to talk about this story, but I wanted to because I actually have a personal interaction that would shed some light on the story. So with that in mind, let's get to it.
Like when you texted,
okay, well,
I can't wait for Trump to, I hate him with passion, like with a passion. Like you had those came out in court. And that's what you thought, but at the same time, you were actively supporting Trump and the whole 2020 election situation. So that's disinformation right there.
You're one of the most annoying people I've ever dealt with.
Tucker Carlson was confronted and called out as a liar during a Q&A section at a Turning Points event. Which, by the way, the fact that he's at a Turning Point event is pretty miraculous given all the drama that's played out recently. Nonetheless, the main question here is, why did Tucker say that he absolutely despises Trump in private messages? And then later, publicly, he said nothing but good things about Trump, in fact, endorsed Trump and donated the maximum amount to his campaign in 2024. Like, why is he lying to the public? That's basically the question being asked here, while telling the truth to people close to him privately. So I thought that was actually an important question. And it was so important that I myself had asked Tucker about it in private. Now, the only reason why I'm bringing that up is because after we watch these clips and after we go through the story, I'm gonna either confirm or maybe not confirm that what Tucker Carlson is saying to this young guy is what he told me when I asked him the same question. So with that in mind, let's get to the text message exchanges that the questioner is asking about. Because this is a story that we obviously covered a few times, because how could we not? It's so juicy, right? Like, what does Tucker actually think about Donald Trump? Because I'll tell you this, when I was in Pennsylvania to debate Ben Shapiro before the Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce, I can't tell you how many conversations I had with Republicans who loathed Trump. This was during Trump's first term, loathed him, hated him, couldn't stand him. This was during COVID and they felt like he was bungling everything. But every single one of them told me I'd never say that publicly. They're terrified. So is that the case with Tucker Carlson? You're gonna have to wait and see. But here's a taste of some of the text messages. In a text message sent on January 4th, 2021, Carlson wrote, "We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait." I felt the same way, by the way. I don't know if you guys remember, but by year 4 of Trump's first term, I was just exhausted and bored. I was bored by Trump. Like the same antics, the same drama, the same like incompetent nonsense, the same stories of like the Democratic establishment pulling its hair out. I was just so sick of it. I just wanted anything new. He also said, "I hate him," meaning Trump, passionately. "I can't handle much more of this." Okay, so it's very clear. Again, this is in January of 2021, and that's what the gentleman in the audience is asking about. Let's see how Tucker Carlson responded.
Those are between me and a producer of mine who I really love, who I still am close to. And that was about, it was in January after the election, and Trump was saying, they stole it from me. And I called the White House and I said, I'm totally willing to believe that. And I say to the White House, someone specifically at the White House, give me examples. And he says, I have got a great example for you. I've got 7 or 8 dead people who voted. And the beauty of that claim was it's provable because they're death certificates. And we've got the death certificates and we've got the obits, and they voted, and they're on the voter rolls. We know they voted. Well, I mean, talk about slam dunk. And we put the obits up. Well, within like 25 minutes, a couple of the dead people call CNN to say, we're not dead. And CNN runs this whole thing exposing that I have just like made this colossal error on the air. There's nothing I hate more than being wrong and humiliated like that, because like I have a staff, we should get this right. And I didn't get it right because it's so easy to check whether or not someone has died that I didn't check. And I was enraged.
So is that a good enough excuse, or not even excuse, or explanation for why he sent those text messages to his producer, why he was saying what he was saying? I don't know, that's really up to you to decide. I don't really care that much how he feels about Donald Trump, to be honest with you. I do care if someone is saying one thing privately and then lying to people publicly. And the reason why I ended up going on Tucker Carlson's podcast is because he was willing to have a call with me and answer any question of mine, right? Until I either felt comfortable going on his podcast or just decided, no, I can't do this. I wasn't even the one who came up with the idea to have the call. His producers had been reaching out to me for over a year and a half. I just kept ignoring the emails, didn't plan on ever going on his show. And then this offer to have a conversation privately came up. And I asked the question, the exact same question, because I don't want to sit down and waste any of my time with anyone that I think is bad faith, or anyone I can't have at least a little bit of trust toward, right? If you are lying to people publicly, I have an issue with that. So I asked him the same question, and I was really happy to see he told this guy the exact same thing he told me. And look, I would be really upset too if, let's say, Bernie Sanders, a politician I like, was telling me something, I repeat it on this show, and then I have egg on my face because of what he told me. It ends up to be completely false, untrue, and another news organization is clowning me about it and embarrassing me about it. I would be very upset. So there's that, but I don't think that explains everything. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. Look, I think most people, whether they're on the left or right, don't really like Trump on a personal level. He acts like a child. I'm gonna say something the left's not gonna like. I like manly men, and I don't think Trump acts like a manly man. I think he acts like a little bitch all the time. He whines, he cries, he thinks the world owes him everything. You're the most powerful man in the world. And with that power, all I hear him do is complain incessantly. And to me, that's not what a manly man does. So I think that you can be critical of someone while also giving them credit for things they do right. Marjorie Taylor Greene is another perfect example. The things that she's been saying recently about the affordability crisis Americans are being confronted with is wonderful. And I fully commend her on that. But it depends on the conversation. If you're gonna have a conversation with me about things that she said in the past, let's say her chasing down David Hogg after he witnessed his own classmates get slaughtered by a mass shooter. I didn't like that. And if I were texting a friend about that, I would say some pretty nasty things about what Marjorie Taylor Greene did, right? So I think it really depends on the context, it depends on the situation. And in this particular context, Tucker Carlson was mad because the Trump campaign was lying about how they had evidence of voter fraud. Tucker then aired that evidence of voter fraud, which ended up being totally false. That's embarrassing. You're the most viewed Fox News show at the time, the top rated cable news show, period, at the time. Yeah, it's super embarrassing. I would say negative things about Trump too, and his campaign, if I were in his shoes. But he did say some pretty negative things very soon after Election Day, and none of the other stuff happened. Like none of the election fraud claims, none of the, hey, we have evidence, we're gonna give you false information, you're gonna broadcast and embarrass you. None of that had happened yet. So I think when you look at some of the other text messages, some of the other thoughts that he had, like for instance, let's go to this message from November 6th of 2020, soon after the election. He's texting with Alex Pfeiffer, who I believe is his producer. Trump has a pretty low rate at success in his business ventures, and Tucker Carlson tells the truth. That's for sure. All of them fail. What he's good at is destroying things. He's the undisputed world champion of that. True. True. I can't disagree with that. Now, if you want to have the president's ear, are you going to openly go around and talk about what a failure he was in his multiple businesses and his multiple bankruptcies? Probably not. Probably not. But I think it's okay. It's okay to be critical of Trump, whether it's privately or publicly. But I think we don't need to be children about this, right? I think we all speak about things and people a little differently when we're under the impression that we're having a private conversation with someone. But I think it would actually suit Trump. It would actually benefit the Trump administration if there were more on the right, more people on the right who were willing to criticize him or be critical of what he's been up to. And to Tucker Carlson's credit, he has been on the issues that matter the most. When it comes to Israel and Gaza, I mean, he is one of the most outspoken critics of the White House's foreign policy. When it came to bombing Iran's nuclear sites, Tucker Carlson was the most vociferous on the right. He pushed back against the Trump administration considering doing that. Now, unfortunately, the Trump administration decided to do that anyway. I say unfortunately because that could have dragged us into a larger, terrible war with Iran. And the only reason why it didn't is because Iran showed restraint and didn't retaliate the way you would expect them to retaliate. When you hit up the Americans and let them know, hey, we're gonna do some strikes on your military bases. We're gonna give your soldiers some time to evacuate before we do it so no one gets hurt. Yeah, that's not really retaliation. That's just a way to signal to your people, yeah, I retaliated. We did what we needed to do. We're not weak. Anyway, but what he said on that stage was almost word for word what he told me privately. So he's at least consistent with his explanation for why he messaged those things. But at the end of the day, Tucker's statements about Trump in these messages, I totally agree with. He should say them more often, strategically, of course, in public. Anyway, we gotta take a break. Cenk Uygur will be with us in just a minute.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd. But it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no. He's taken apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Sorrell, Nina Turner.
Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you.
It's great to be with you, Jack.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated, or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level, it's like, good, what we're talking about it now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, that your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both work to achieve. And I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making that.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy Anna Kasparian. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on TYT.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real, positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
Frack, 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 like a duck. Frack, frack, frack. Frack, 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 like a duck. Frack, frack, frack.
Antifa. Al-Qaeda.
Bacon.
All right, welcome back to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. So, by the way, fascinating show today. So at 8 o'clock Eastern, we're gonna have a really interesting guest, the uncle of a American child who's basically been kidnapped by the Israelis. So our embassy's barely trying to get him back. Of course, they don't really care. So we're gonna try to see if we can get Marco Rubio to care about American citizens. That is very unlikely, of course. He cares way more about Israel. But then after that, we're gonna have another interesting guest, George Santos.
You know you can't believe a word that guy says.
George Santos?
Yeah.
No, I think he's totally trustworthy. I'm gonna take him at his word. No, we're gonna have a conversation, okay? All right.
He's a literally.
I'm not unaware who George Santos is.
I know. I just like, I'm willing to have a conversation with anyone except someone who is literally notorious for being a pathological liar. But I'm looking forward to the interview. It'll be great.
Okay, well, the good news, I'm the one doing it, not you. So, okay, so then everybody's happy. So that's later tonight at 8:30 Eastern in that ballpark. Okay, so we got a lot to get to. What's next, Anna?
Well, sometimes you just accidentally get a Nazi tattoo, and then when you realize it is a Nazi tattoo, you keep it on your body until you're running for Senate. At least that's the case in this next story.
Well, sometimes you run for Senate and are doing great, and an a-hole like Chuck Schumer comes and does Oppo research against you because he wants to replace you with a pro-AIPAC, pro-corporate, pro-donor Democrat who's gonna lose the race anyway.
Okay.
So you're gonna see what we're talking about here.
I know. The other candidate is bad, so we have to pretend like reality doesn't exist. But
no,
obviously we're gonna get heated in this story because it's like infuriating to me that the very people who made my life a living hell for 2 years straight because I had the audacity to openly talk about a homeless, drugged out guy sexually harassing me or assaulting me in my own neighborhood was not okay. That wasn't okay. That wasn't okay. That made me a Nazi. I stigmatized the homeless, of course. But a guy who has a freaking Nazi tattoo and keeps it on his body for several decades, that's okay. That's okay.
It's not the
because
same
everyone's
people,
looking
Anna.
for a daddy,
No.
a single political figure who's gonna save us all. But that's not how things work.
No. Okay, as you can tell, Anna and I are gonna significantly disagree here. I'm as animated as she is for the reasons that I stated. It's about Graham Plattner in Maine. So let's tell him the story and then make sure you stay around and see my defense of him because I think this is nonsense.
Okay, so Graham Plattner, a Democrat running for a Senate seat in Maine, has become engulfed in a firestorm of controversy regarding some old social media posts, Reddit posts, and even a tattoo that now is confirmed to be a Nazi symbol. So we'll get to the tattoo in just a minute, but first some background on Plattner if you're not familiar with him. So basically, he was born and raised in Maine, okay? He joined the Marines shortly after high school, serving tours in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Beginning in 2011, he attended George Washington University and worked as a bartender. Pretty simple life, hate the fact that he had to serve multiple tours in the Middle East for wars that were complete and utter failures, and a lot of our soldiers suffered from PTSD as a result. Plattner happens to be one of them. Now, during that time, Plattner would still go away for military deployments ever so often. He eventually withdrew from the university and returned to Maine because he needed PTSD treatment. Now, in 2018, Plattner briefly returned to Afghanistan as a contractor for a company, a private contractor known as Constellus, which is the same as Blackwater. Blackwater had just so thoroughly destroyed its reputation for the war crimes that were committed in the Middle East that they rebranded to another name. But that same year, he quit working as a security contractor and returned to Maine to begin working as an oyster farmer, and he's been doing that ever since. Okay, so look, it's worth noting that Plattner has extensively discussed both in public and in some of his leaked Reddit posts how his military service radicalized him against the military-industrial complex. So that was a pivotal experience for him. And he learned from it in a good way, right? He realized what was actually going on with some of our US foreign policy, and it opened his eyes. And I wanna just be clear, people, of course, are able to evolve and change. All sorts of people that we have talked about on the show have posted things online or on social media that we didn't like, but you give people a chance if they say that they've grown from that. Now, Plattner began his campaign for Senate in August of this year. Here's an excerpt from his announcement video.
We have watched this state become essentially unlivable for working class people, and it makes me deeply angry. My name is Graham Plattner, and I'm running for US Senate in Maine to defeat Susan Collins. A decade of military service going overseas, farming oysters to feed my community, diving to lend a hand to other fishermen, trying to start a family. But everywhere I've gone, it seems like the fabric of what holds us together is being ripped apart by billionaires and corrupt politicians, profiting off of destroying our environment, driving our families into poverty, and crushing the middle class. I did 4 infantry tours in the Marine Corps and the Army. I'm not afraid to name an enemy, and the enemy is the oligarchy. It's the billionaires who pay for it, and the politicians who sell us out. And yeah, that means politicians like Susan Collins. People know that the system is screwing them. They know it in their bones. Nobody I know around here can afford a house. Healthcare is a disaster. Hospitals are closing. We have watched all of that get ripped away from us, and everyone's just trying to keep it all together. Why can't we have universal health care like every other first world country? Why can't we take care of our veterans when they come home? Why are we funding endless wars and bombing children? Why are CEOs more powerful than unions?
Okay, this isn't our first rodeo, typical progressive political ad. We're gonna go after the billionaires, we need better health care, you get the picture. He is in favor of Medicare for all, universal child care, banning private equity and hedge funds from buying homes, ending government subsidies for drug companies. Now, let's get to the controversies.
Okay, we say that, yes, you could say it's typical progressive. It's not a typical Democrat. Janet Mills, his primary opponent, is a corporate establishment governor of Maine and will do none of those things. Has never done any of those things, will never back any of those things.
She's too old.
She's 77 years old.
She's too old. This is insane. So I have no love for Mills. I don't want anyone to think that I'm like sitting here and like, oh, Plattner bad, but Mills great. No, Mills sucks, and Mills is a symbol of the rot in the current Democratic establishment. I want to be clear about that. At the same time, though, I have a huge problem with, I think progressives, whether they're in the media or even progressive voters, you're not gonna be saved by a single politician. And there's like this constant search for the one savior, the Messiah, who's gonna deliver us from this terrible economic system. It doesn't work that way. You need to build people power. You need to build coalitions, an effective outside pressure campaign to actually accomplish these policies. Because one person, even if Plattner, even if you fully trust him and elect him and he's in the Senate, he's not gonna be able to unilaterally do anything. Okay?
I know, but it's better than having a corporate stooge. So it's like, I mean, I don't want to give up. I want to support the candidates that are much more likely to be on our side. So he's not a corrupt, slimy, robotic politician. So, okay, so what did they do? They dug up the Oppo research.
Yeah.
So the Oppo research is, oh, okay, he was a bad guy at some point, wrote mean things, terrible things at some point in his life. Yeah, I've been through that. So I don't care. I support him completely. But okay, let's give you the Oppo research first. So, and by the way, brought to you by the crypt keeper, Chuck Schumer. So Chuck Schumer is the dirtbag who destroys any populist Democratic candidate in a primary and then goes, well, I was about to rub my hands. I know I'm not allowed to, okay? But he reports back to his corporate donors, don't worry, I destroyed the outsiders. Congratulations, Chuck. Anyway, go ahead.
So in 2013, he wrote, in today's current climate, when every whisper of a misplaced hand, he's talking about women here, every whisper of a misplaced hand brings down a feature-length film, anyone who actually thinks the military is purposefully covering up rape, they have been, to save the career of some goddamn captain, they do, is clearly both an idiot and junior enough in rank or life experience to think it matters. Another comment from that same year, how about people just take some responsibility for themselves and not get so effed up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to. Men and women, you make a choice to consume enough of a substance to lose your self-control. So if you don't want to be in a compromising situation, act like an adult for F's sake, which is ironic given the fact that he apparently got a Nazi symbol as a tattoo, and his excuse is that he was in the Marines and he was drunk when he did it. Under a post titled, "What is a question you have always wanted to ask someone of another race?" Here's what he wrote. Why don't black people tip? I work as a bartender and it always amazes me how solid this stereotype is. Every now and again, a black patron will leave a 15 to 20% tip, but usually it is between 0 to 5%. There's got to be a reason behind it. What is it? 2018, he made the following comments in a socialist firearms subreddit. If people expect to fight fascism without a good semi-automatic rifle, they ought to do some reading of history, he wrote in one since deleted post. In another, he said that an armed working class is a requirement for economic justice. There's more. I mean, there's a lot, right? The biggest issue I have is the tattoo. So I want to get to that in just a minute, but before I do, thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, I mean, so he also said that he was a communist, he was a socialist, he said disparaging things about cops, and the list goes on. Okay, so by the way, he's a communist and a Nazi. Curious. You're right to point out the irony of don't do stupid stuff while you're drunk. Oh, I did a stupid thing while I was drunk. Totally right to point
Rape
out
is
that.
okay.
No, he didn't say rape is okay. He didn't say that.
Right.
Okay, and so, but it doesn't matter because it was those comments were 12 years ago. Look, guys, this is needle in a haystack. Okay, now maybe they found a couple of needles here, but most of the posts are from the Reddit times. The only other thing that's different is the tattoo. Okay, so we're gonna explain why he got the tattoo too, or at least give his explanation. So, but whenever there's an outsider on the left or the right. Now on the right, usually they have like tons of baggage like Herschel Walker, etc. But on the left, this guy has had no issues up until now. He has been fantastic on the campaign trail. He's been open to independence and even the right? And he has brought in a populist surge in Maine. He's raised a lot of money, all grassroots against corporate donors, etc. So then the crypt keeper comes in and goes, no, the donors have to be served loyally. And this guy doesn't seem like he's gonna serve the donors. So he then convinces Janet Mills, that's of course Chuck Schumer, convinces Janet Mills, the governor, okay, you go in, we'll back you with a ton of AIPAC money and all sorts of other dirty money, defense contractors or whatever, right? Don't worry, the scumbags are behind you. But remember, when you get into the Senate, you work for the donor class, you understand? Janet Mills is like, of course, sir. So, and she's 77, man, Jesus Christ, man. You know what their problem is? They're running out of people who will sell their soul to the donor class. So they have to keep going to people at above 70 and 80 who've been doing it their whole lives. So that's why they're doing it. And so they look for stuff that's wrong in your life. Now you're a guy who served 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Guess what? You're gonna have things that are wrong in your life. Do I believe that he had PTSD? Yes. Do I believe that he's a different person today than he was when he wrote those posts? Yes, because I got eyes and ears, because he doesn't sound anything like that, right? And I have personal experience. For me, they did this, Anna, they did the same exact thing. Dug, couldn't find anything real, never hurt anyone, never did anything wrong, nothing against consent, nothing, right?
But you never got a Nazi tattoo and kept it on your body for like 20 years.
Okay, hold on, we're gonna get to that. So then they found something that I wrote in the 1990s, right? Was I a different person? Yes, I was a Republican, I was a conservative, I was a shock jock, I was trying to get attention, etc. right? So no, that's it, you're stained forever. All right, let's look at the Janet Mills life, okay? And all the corporate goons that she's represented her whole life. How about we look at Chuck Schumer's life, okay? Chuck Schumer is great servant of Israel. Okay, I'm not interested in goddamn Chuck Schumer and his stupid donor class. I would much rather have an authentic guy who made a bunch of dumb mistakes earlier in his life than a bunch of people I know to be corrupt. I know sell us out every single day, and I know they have no intention of passing any of the Democratic policies. Chuck Schumer has proven his whole life that he's deeply, at a bare minimum, that he's either deeply incompetent, a buffoon who couldn't pass the most popular bills in the country. Paid family leaves at 84%, buffoon. Did you pass it? No. When you had clear majorities in the House, the Senate, and you had the White House. The reality is he's not a buffoon. He's corrupt. He doesn't want to pass any of those bills. I will never vote for one of those Chuck Schumer goons, okay? So give me Graham Plattner with all of his mistakes and all of his faults, and you go dig mainstream media, bunch of hacks. Schumer gives you the info, you're like, oh, I'll type it up, okay. He's a bad guy, outsider, for change, a populist, bad guy, okay? I got it, I've been through this 1,000 times. Come on, Anna, we've been through it 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, we have been through it 1,000,000 times, Cenk. Always, we put our whole support, we overlook all of the red flags, put all our support behind the progressive. He's the progressive. Okay, red flag, ignore it. Red flag, ignore it. He's gonna save us, Oh, are we now discussing?
I don't need him to save us. I need him to win this race rather than Susan Collins or Janet Mills, who swear that they will represent every other corporation and foreign government, but never the citizens.
That's exactly what John Fetterman ended up doing.
I know, Fetterman's a douche. Fetterman is a toxic cancer in this country, not just because he immediately switched over and now he laps the feet of Donald Trump. He's sitting there licking his feet and Netanyahu's, he's disgusting. But the bigger problem with Fetterman is he's doing what Anna's right. Anna's right. The problem is that toxic a-holes like Fetterman cause such cynicism that when people come by now, everybody goes, no, I don't want to vote for anybody. Because remember Fetterman, right? Fetterman, you're the worst person, man.
No, hold on.
Jesus Christ. The way you betrayed people and sold them out for Israel, congratulations. Now you got everybody questioning every candidate. Go ahead, Anna.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, there were red flags with Fetterman too. But everyone was so certain that what he was saying, the surface level stuff he was saying was true. I'm not saying don't vote for someone. I'm saying don't ignore the red flags. And more importantly, how does the left not see this? Maybe they don't see it because they didn't go through what I went through. But how do you ruin someone's life? How does Majority Report do 5 videos on me saying I don't like calling women birthing people? And that's worthy of full cancellation. You are irredeemable. You are a TERF. You are a transphobe. You are garbage, right? How does that happen? But suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where the very same people are defending a guy who got a freaking Nazi tattoo, and he claimed he didn't know it was a Nazi symbol when he got it. Okay, maybe I will give him that. I find it dubious, but okay, even if I took that for face value, he was drunk, he was in the Marines, he didn't know it was a Nazi symbol, he got it. Then he keeps it on his body and doesn't cover it up for 20 years?
I think that proves the opposite. But to your point, look.
And that's not cancelable, right?
No, but you're getting angry at the wrong side of it, Anna.
I'm getting angry at the exact same people. Right?
I know, but at the wrong side of it. The correct answer isn't they should also cancel Graham Plantner. The correct answer is instead of being greedy douches who are like, oh, we're gonna get another left winger, we're gonna grab their audience. Yeah, I said it, Emma and Sam. Okay, oh, let's cancel them. They said something slightly wrong, right? So, okay, yeah. So you should hate them for that, not go and cancel Graham Plantner to make it equal.
Listen, I don't care about my relationship or lack thereof with Emma and Sam. That doesn't matter to me at all. What matters to me though is how you actually accomplish the policies you want. And if in their minds, it's okay, we're gonna overlook all of this stuff that we would totally destroy your life over or my life over. It's okay because we wanna build power, progressive power in Congress. I would maybe believe that, except I have come to learn, and hopefully everyone else who's been paying attention has come to learn, that if you're gonna rely simply on electoralism to accomplish any of this stuff, you will be disappointed time and time again. AOC, disappointment. How is she being outflanked by Marjorie Taylor Greene on the topic of healthcare right now? It's insane. So you need to build coalitions outside of Congress, organize people to actually apply the pressure to these lawmakers to help get these policies accomplished. And that's impossible to do. It's literally impossible to do. Because if you're on the left, and God forbid, you think the phrase birthing people is degrading to women? You're gone. You're we're purging.
I know, but Anna, you're angry at the wrong end of it.
No,
so, okay, hold on.
I'm angry at the right thing. I'm angry at the ineffectiveness of the left in America.
Okay, but Anna, what am I doing? So at 8 o'clock Eastern, we know, we just started this a couple of weeks ago. We're crowdsourcing the revolution. What does that mean? To end the corruption. Is it foolhardy and naive? Sure, but I'm doing the exact thing you're talking about, which is trying to bring no, but hold on, listen to what I'm saying. Coalition of left, right, middle, whatever, to let's go. Let's try to get lower drug prices. Let's try to stop the funding of Israel, and there's ceaseless genocide, etc. And it is a real coalition. And yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene joined Ro Khanna's bill. By the way, what was Ro Khanna? A Justice Democrat, a progressive in Congress. So if we had given up, there would be no Ro Khanna. So the answer isn't to get frustrated at, I mean, Ro Khanna is doing, I think, almost everything right. I agree with you that AOC is still
an embarrassment.
And I wouldn't go that far, but she's half and half, right? Okay, and I wish that she fought with all her heart and might the things that matter, but they always go to culture wars. But guys, to me, the most important part, and I'm being principled here, and Anna, to your point about when you try to build a movement that gets people elected, and what happens? Well, it happened to me, and it happened to me from the left too, if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember.
So I formed Justice Democrat with Shoykad Chakrabarti, who's now running against Nancy Pelosi. You should support him, okay? And then they smeared me just like this, and so the alt-right started it. Mainstream media piled on, but who finished me off? The left did, progressives did, right?
And so they were like, oh, you said naughty things 28 years ago. You're a terrible, cancel him, cancel. But guys, I'm trying to create something that could get AOC elected and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley. And when they did, Anna, did I get bitter? No, what did I do? I said, support the candidates anyway. And we raised $2.5 million for them. Now, do I wish they had done better? Yes, of course. And so, but at the same time, I never give up. So I come back at them again and again and again. It's not the fault of the entire left or the Democrats or whatever. And certainly, as you know more better than anyone, not the fault of the voters, that there's a couple of people who love to cancel people on our side. They love it, and it's usually for deeply selfish reasons. So you're right to point out the hypocrisy. Oh, I like Plattner and I like this, that, and the other thing. They can have the worst things ever, like things that are halfway okay
they can
with
have a literal Nazi tattoo.
Yeah, they can have all of that and they won't cancel them. Oh, but one of my competitors, ooh, they said something 1% off. Cancel them, cancel them. So guys, forget Majority Report, who cares? They're a bunch of nobodies. They go, oh, cry a tear about it. I know, oh, we're gonna target you guys. We're gonna try to smear you. I've seen all of it, guys. I've been through all of it from the left, the right, the middle. That's not the point. The point is, do not let them keep canceling us. I don't mean us as in the Young Turks, I mean all of us. The populists, the outsiders, the change agents, the progressives. And when someone on the left is canceling someone else on the left, be super wary, because they're probably doing it for deeply selfish reasons.
Cenk, I can't defend the tattoo thing. He didn't.
All right, let's show him the tattoo.
All right, so let me give you all the details on it. I just can't, and I won't. So he got this tattoo, are we allowed to show the imagery? I don't even know.
I don't know, man. There's so many stupid rules. I mean, so how could people judge if we don't show it to them? So show it to them.
Okay, so this is the tattoo. You're gonna see his tattoo on the left-hand side, and then the symbol is on the right-hand side. So the symbol on the right is an insignia that was used by Nazi death's head units. So literally, it's a Nazi symbol. It's called Totenkopf. And Plattner's former political director, Genevieve McDonald, wrote that Graham has an anti-Semitic tattoo on his chest. He's not an idiot, he's a military history buff. Maybe he didn't know it when he got it, but he got it years ago and he should have it covered up because he knows damn well what it means. But he didn't cover it up until like 10 minutes ago. It was announced today that he's covering it up, or did cover it up. Yesterday, Jewish Insider quoted an anonymous former acquaintance of Plattner who said that in 2012, Plattner acknowledged the symbol's Nazi ties. Plattner said, oh, this is my Totenkopf. He said it in a cutesy little way. I mean,
I don't believe it.
It's up to interpretation. We don't know how he said it.
It's an anonymous source from Jewish Insider. Get out of here. I don't believe it at all. Probably totally fabricated.
One more thing. Here's a video of Plattner talking about the tattoo.
I am not a secret Nazi. Actually, if you read through my Reddit comments, I think you can pretty much figure out where I stand on Nazism, and anti-Semitism and racism in general. I would say a lifelong opponent. In 2007, I was a machine gun section leader with Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines. We were on the 2-2 Mu, and it was my 3rd deployment. My previous 2 had been to Fallujah and then Ramadi, 2006. And we went ashore in Split, Croatia, myself and a few of the other machine gun squad leaders, and we got very inebriated. And we did what Marines on liberty do, and we decided to go get a tattoo. And I've also just lived my entire life like a regular person with the skull and crossbones on their chest, which by that I mean taking my shirt off, performing Miley Cyrus songs in front of my extended family, and to my sister-in-law, and just taking my shirt off at the beach.
Right, presumably going to the beach, yeah.
I mean, I went to college, I went to the gym, I did all the things, and at no point in this entire experience of my life did anybody ever once say, hey, you're a Nazi. And I can honestly say that if I was trying to hide it, I've not been doing a very good job for the past 18 years.
So it's true that his writings make clear that he's against racism, he's against Nazis. But that makes this story even more strange, because had I accidentally gotten a Nazi symbol on my body when I was drunk, and then I realized later that it's a Nazi symbol, I like literally will drop everything I'm doing. I will take time off work to do what needs to be done to either remove it through laser or cover it.
Yeah, so he did that now, he covered it, he sent it out. But Anna, look, I don't know whether to believe him or not, because he says, I've had this thing on my body for 20 years. Not one person has ever said that's a Nazi symbol. Because if they had, why would I keep taking my shirt off? Why would I keep taking pictures with my shirt off? Why would I keep those pictures up and videos up, etc., when I'm running for office? I mean, look, I'm now putting a little bit of words in his mouth and expanding on what he said. You saw some of it there in the video. And to me, that is an interesting point. And he's like, look, we had a bunch of options on the wall in Croatia of like badass tattoos. I'm a Marine, I picked a skull and bones, which is very normal for Marines. I didn't know what symbol it was. No one ever told me for all this time. The minute that I find out it is, I'm like, all right, let's cover it. I had no idea, I don't want that stuff on my body. Now, if he says that, and then you see all of his past stuff, which is obviously unrestrained, right? He didn't know he was gonna run for office, said a lot of bad things. And if in that stuff, he's like, neo-Nazis not so bad, blah, 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 or says things that are anti-Semitic, then I go, well, context clues, that makes me think maybe not. But instead, he's saying the opposite in those posts. So is he a communist or is he a Nazi?
I mean, I'm not into either one of those.
Neither am I, and my point is, I don't think he's either one of those. I think it's a hatchet job. So look, you're not wrong to be concerned. You're not wrong to raise red flags. And so am I saying he's an angel and I'm positive? I don't know the guy. And we're happy to interview him. Hopefully he'll come on, we'll talk it through, okay? And so I can't vouch for him because I didn't grow up with him and I don't know him, right? But I do know Chuck Schumer, and I know he's a bad faith actor. And I know that he's gonna lose this race like he always does. I know he serves corporate donors. And so my guess is that, hey, lo and behold, a guy who won't serve not just the corporate donors, but let's keep it real, also AIPAC. So all of a sudden there's a controversy about how he's a Nazi and how he's the worst person in the world, and no one should ever, ever, ever vote for him because he won't serve the powerful in Congress and in Washington. So look, I would recommend vote for Plantner over Mills every day. 20 times a day. I know you only get to vote once. Republicans, calm down, it's a joke, okay? So look, that's my sense of it. But if it turns out you're right later, Anna, and he turns into a Fetterman, or it turns out that this was real and he was lying about it, all right, then okay, then that's on me. And look, it's the Fetterman. I said Fetterman was better than Dr. Oz. I said Fetterman was the right way to go. So maybe I'm wrong again. And guys, we also have to acknowledge that we could be wrong, right? I know, again, there's some shows, no, 100% ideology, 100%, no one's allowed to ever go past that. Oh, unless you're someone we like, then you could do whatever you like. Anyways, I'm tired of all that crap. So I'm taking him over Mills all day long.
All right, when we come back from the break, we'll talk about Trump trying to get the DOJ to pay him hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars because of the fact that he didn't like that he was being prosecuted when he wasn't in power. That and more coming up, don't miss it.
All right, back during the social break. DJ Payne writes in on Super Chat. Get Planter on the show and ask him these questions. Give him a chance to clear his name. I'm torn between Anna and Cenk. I say have him as a guest and ask him. So yes, we will definitely try to do that. Constantine Kavira says, I'm Planter. I fall somewhere between Cenk and Anna, but closer to Cenk. Just because info came from biased Oppo research doesn't mean I should ignore it entirely.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you should be super wary of it.
Look, I get it. Like, I can't stand the Democratic establishment, and I loathe people like Chuck Schumer. I mean, the failures within the Democratic establishment, you can totally cite the Schumers and Democratic leadership for that. I'm not supportive of the other Democratic candidate. It's just that, like, let's not be like enamored with someone because they're saying some of the right things when they're campaigning. If there's a red flag, you should take it seriously. And that's a pretty big red flag.
All right, XXX, Pretty God XX wrote in. Just remember Fetterman, he said all kinds of things we like, but was lying completely. Keep betting him, report back, let us know. yeah, of course we're gonna keep vetting him, right? But there's a difference between us vetting him and a hatchet job from Chuck Schumer mainstream media. So when I see that happen, I discount it by 80%. And then I read it and I make my own judgment call. And so the haystack of his current situation is that he is a significant and smart and interesting populist. Yes, the needles are things to worry about. Okay, in Liberty and Guns We Trust says, Tucker's a great guy and I highly respect him. After he left Fox, the guy did a complete 180. I voted for Trump, but don't agree 100% with everything he does. No one's perfect in the end, we all sin. Okay, so that's in reference to a story Anna did about Tucker earlier. Crowded Crow writes in on YouTube member section, I'm with Ro Khanna and Bernie, and sounds like Cenk on this one. Yeah, Plattner is all kinds of fool for not removing that tattoo, and no, I don't believe he initially knew its association. Rigger 49er says, you can change, I have gang tattoos, but I'm the furthest thing from being a gang member or wanting to promote that lifestyle. I've changed, so.
I know, I've changed too. That's why, like, look, when it comes to what he wrote on Reddit in 2013, even though some of it I find pretty gross, I'm willing to believe that he has grown as a person because in what, 12 years? Yeah, people change, they do. I'm not the same person I was 12 years ago. But the tattoo thing really does bother me, and it is a red flag that like it was on his body for as long as it was and he didn't cover it up until it became a political liability.
Eclectic writes in on TYT.com. These are some pretty damning quotes. Was he targeted because he's a progressive? Of course. Are these issues valid concerns? Yes. And Nazi tattoo, I'm with Anna on this one. We can't just ignore legitimate disqualifying things just because the Dems are out to smear them. Yeah, context, guys. So yes, if they keep finding things where he was in favor of Nazis and said it, right? Okay, then that's gonna give you the context. No, then I was wrong. And that's where his head's at or has been at, right? But there is no other context other than that tattoo. I'm not just doing it out of blind faith. I'm looking at the context of the whole situation. And here's the context of Mills and Schumer and all the other Democrats. They've been selling us out to the highest bidder their entire lives. So voting for them is ridiculous, totally ridiculous. So, all right, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna, more news.
All right, well, Trump is still very salty about the fact that he was being prosecuted for multiple cases when he wasn't in power, and now he wants some payback, literal financial payback. Let's get into it.
New York Times is reporting that your legal team is seeking $230 million from your own Justice Department now in response to the investigations into you. Is that something you want your legal team to do?
I don't know what the numbers are. I don't even talk to them about it. All I know is that they would owe me a lot of money, but I'm not looking for money. I'd give it to charity. With the country, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right? And that decision would have to go across my desk. And it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much you're paying yourself in damages?
Well, he wouldn't be paying himself. The American taxpayers who are already living in a country that's $37 trillion in debt would be footing the $230 million DOJ bill. And if you want to give to charity, how about you don't ask the DOJ to give you $230 million? The DOJ that is subordinate to you as the president of the United States. Like, what is this?
No, he's brought up an administrative case earlier, right? Yeah. Before he took office again. So you could just drop the case.
Drop the case.
Why would you take $230 million from taxpayers to give to charity? And no one believes you're gonna give to charity. You're gonna say, oh, I'm giving to my library, the library that's gonna pay me. We don't believe you. By the way, right wing, you're gonna find out this guy's a con man and you're gonna be 10 times angrier than we are.
Look, to be fair,
he's been robbing you blind all day long. And now he's gonna try to rob all of us with this $230 million scam.
To be fair, I have seen some on the right who I disagree with on pretty much everything, urging Trump not to do this. So
yes.
Scott Jennings is one of them. I saw that he.
No, I'm not blaming the right-wing voters. Yeah. I'm telling them what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen is things like this are gonna wake up the right wing. So forget the radical right. We're talking about big chunk in the middle, right? The independents and people who voted for Trump, but that are not like cronies and like corrupt and all that. They're just regular people. One day they're gonna go to a news source that isn't totally biased in favor of Donald Trump. They're gonna look at it and go, wait a minute, I gotta pay Donald Trump, a guy who claims to be a billionaire, I gotta pay him $230 million? I gotta take money out of my pocket, and the president's gonna give himself $230 million? What is this? He's like, have you ever seen that? And he's grinning like a big old cat, like, I guess it's gonna come across my desk, right? Yeah, you know why you've never seen a case like that? Because it's the most obvious conflict of interest in human history. No, the president can't pay himself $230 million from out of our pockets. Are you insane? And come on, if you're in the Trump camp that's radical right, and you're like cat turd or whatever the hell you are, you're like, oh, I love Donald Trump. I have no mind. I gave it to Donald Trump. I have no mind. Okay, all right, then what do you? Why don't you let him rob your entire house, give all of your belongings to him, and leave us out of it? Why do I have to pay for this son of a bitch to steal $230 million from us? It's never been done before. It's insanity for the president to give himself that kind of money. And if Joe Biden did it, you'd want to rip his head off rhetorically, politically, right? But if Hunter Biden did it, right? But if Trump does it, oh, Daddy Trump, I have to lick his boots. Go ahead, turd all over yourself.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what is happening with the White House, the demolition process, and what this ballroom is all about. And if we have time, we'll talk about how you're very likely gonna lose your job to automation. Lots of fun, be right back.
All right, let's go to Twitch. Catch a Butterfly says, fool me once, Sinema and Fetterman, not getting fooled again. Luckily, I don't live in Maine to have to decide which candidate. What are we gonna do, guys? We're all gonna give up. We're never gonna vote for anyone. I got news for you. They're gonna do Oppo research on every single populist progressive. They're gonna do zero opposition research on every corrupt corporate Democrat. Zero, okay? Man, if I have money, they better watch the F out. Okay, because I'm gonna start an entire Oppo research wing, okay? And then I'm gonna go look into every one of these corporate goons in Washington. And I'm gonna expose their corruption and all the billionaires who target outsiders. Oh, let's see if you got any skeletons in your closet, right? Oh, boo-hoo, you don't like that, right? You only wanna do it to us. Anyway, all right. Look, guys, we're all split on it. There's legitimate concerns. I'm just so angry about the uneven playing field. This never gets done to the corporate goons. If you support AIPAC, mainstream media will cover you in blankets and pillows and make sure that you're not at all hurt at all. No, shush. Don't ever say anything negative about them, right? Okay, but our guys get slaughtered every time by the liars, the disgusting pigs in mainstream media. All right, you can see I'm mad. Simply B says, I have a master's degree in taught school for 25 years and I'm in the process of moving out of my apartment because they have raised the rent and I can't afford it. I'm currently on disability and I have to move into the guest room of my ex-husband's house. Life sucks. So that describes just about half the country, okay? And the worst people on earth, almost all of our politicians don't give a damn about you. They're sitting there counting their money. Oh yeah, oh I'm sorry, can I do that? No, I can't do that, right? I'm mainly describing Christians or whatever the hell they are. Can I do that? They do count the money. That's all they care about. They're the worst people in America. All right. And nobody ever helps the average American. Nobody ever helps them. I'm so sick of it. Okay, and I didn't get a chance to comment. Maybe I'll do another live video or whatever. And sorry, guys, I'm not reading more of your comments here. But what is that plan to split half of Gaza by that disgusting pig, Jared Kushner? Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, Israel's going to keep half of it. I told you. We all told you. We all told you. Israel's into land theft. It was never about self-defense. Bunch of liars. Jared Kushner wants to use taxpayer money to build Israeli condos on the graves of Palestinian children. Anybody in mainstream media who doesn't tell you that plan is to steal Palestinian land is someone who works for Israel, is a propagandist, is lying to you. And by the way, yes, that describes 99% of mainstream media. I read article after article about this plan. Each one of them are like, oh, it's a really interesting plan. Oh yeah, they might let the Gazans in later to use as cheap labor, right? They didn't say the cheap labor part. None of them talk about it's obviously that Israel's stealing it. It's so goddamn obvious. God damn it, man, everything is wrong. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna, more news.
All right, let's talk about the ballroom for the White House.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks. They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty. It'll be an absolutely magnificent structure. And I just see all the trucks. We just started, so it'll get done very nicely, and it'll be one of the best anywhere in the world, actually.
Well, gruesome political assassination or not, Donald Trump's got a ballroom on his mind, and we've got some updates on the 90,000 square foot White House ballroom. That's, by the way, 90,000 square feet. Like, I can't even, that's so big I can't even conceptualize it. Like, I live in a 1,200 square foot place.
Yeah, no, mine's not much bigger. And I was thinking about that, right? I mean, it's like 50 to 100 times larger than our house.
This is so, like, I mean, it seems like it's gonna be grand. All right, so let's get to the details. So the ballroom that Trump would rather talk about is they just officially broke ground this week. Now, footage from the Washington Post shows the White House's East Wing being demolished to make room for this 90,000 square foot ballroom that will cost US taxpayers a whopping $250 million, which is quite a steal compared to the money that we shell over to Israel for their atrocities in Gaza. Now, it will be able to, allegedly it's gonna hold as many as 999 people, and it will have bulletproof windows. According to the New York Times, this is said to be one of the largest renovations to the White House in decades. The last being when, Harry Truman built the West Wing. Now, the undertaking of such a large project has, in fact, raised many eyebrows among Democrats and other Trump critics, especially since he's building such a luxurious ball. It's gonna be so gold, like it's gonna be gold, all gold, everything. Okay, like the guy have you seen his, joint press conferences with various world leaders where they're like sitting and there's like a fireplace in the background, all this like gold gilded stuff everywhere? That's what the ballroom's gonna look like. We already know.
I just got breaking news on it. They're gonna. He said that they wouldn't touch the East Wing. They're going to demolish the entire East Wing, and they got no prior approval. They don't even have a plan. They won't tell us who's funding it.
What do they have to do? Get permission from like California lawmakers or something?
No, but they have to go through a process. Hey, do you have a workable plan? What are you building? This is not a like, oh, you're remodeling your house and you got to check with zoning, which by the way, you do, right? Yeah. This is the White House. This is the people's house.
And he's like, I don't have a plan. I'm destroying it. And I'm not gonna tell you what I'm doing with it. And I'm not gonna tell you how much it's gonna cost or who's paying for it. The White House looks like a mess. It looks terrible. And now you're gonna destroy the entire East Wing? You said you weren't gonna touch the East Wing.
You're way too angry about this.
No, I am, because he's a destroyer. It's a symbol of our traditions. It's a symbol of the people, of democracy, of the Constitution. And he comes in there, and that symbol is powerful. Andrew Jackson brought in real people. He was a populist, and he had a huge downsides and upsides, but it was a symbol, right? Oh, okay, now the people are welcome in the White House. There's
the people are not welcome in the White House.
No, I know, that was during Andrew Jackson, Anna. That was a long, long time ago, okay? So now, the symbol that Trump is doing is, me destroy, me smash, me smash. Okay, I got it. And me steal. So I was like 250 million. Wait, that sounds like the 230 million you were stealing, where you're gonna give yourself the check. So okay, you're gonna steal that money. You're gonna use another 250 million dollars, probably again from us, and your corrupt donors. You're gonna build some sort of monstrosity that you haven't told anyone about. And now you're telling us, I was lying. I said I was gonna touch the East Wing. I'm a liar. I'm gonna destroy the entire East Wing to put up this piece of crap, whatever the hell he's gonna put up.
Okay, by the way, I should clarify, he claims that this is going to be funded privately, not through taxpayer money. I'm gonna have to wait to see if that's actually true, because I am skeptical of that claim. But my skepticism doesn't necessarily prove anything. We're just gonna have to wait and see how this is actually gonna be funded. So I wanted to make that clarification, because I think I said earlier that it's gonna be taxpayer funded. We don't know yet. All right, with that in mind, obviously there are other Democrats who are very upset about this. Maria Shriver is one of them. She says, this breaks my heart and infuriates me. Hundreds of millions to build a new ballroom, good God. And then the Democrats' X page kind of shows you what the East Wing looks like. So that's what Cenk was referring to when he said that it looks terrible. But everything looks terrible when it's in the middle of a renovation process. I guess I'm not as upset about this because so many other terrible things are happening that this kind of pales in comparison. But I get what you mean. I get the attachment to symbolism and doing this to the White House without any real concern about what people in general, Americans in general, think about it. That kind of sucks. So Trump's donors actually do play a huge part in this ballroom construction because it's privately funded by a multitude of wealthy donors, allegedly. So last week, the New York Times reported that Trump hosted a dinner with a couple dozen corporate executives who helped finance Trump's plans. So Trump reportedly stated that we have a lot of legends in the room tonight, and that's why we're here to celebrate you because you gave. They wanted to have a ballroom and it never happened because they didn't have a real estate person. So many of you have been really, really generous. I mean, a couple of you, I was sitting here and saying, sir, would $25 million be appropriate? They said, I'll take it. So the White House official says that the guest list included executives from companies like Amazon, Apple, Google, Lockheed Martin, Meta, Palantir, of course, Palantir. Palantir is all over the Trump administration. Palantir manufactured JD Vance. So you have that to look forward to in the 2028 presidential election. Coinbase and many more. And Trump has openly admitted that this is privately funded, saying and said it at an earlier event. So could this be a pay to play scheme? I don't know. Like, how does this make sense? Because I can understand if his real estate developer donors see this as an opportunity to make money. But if it's privately funded, like, why would you privately fund this?
So no, here's the situation. He doesn't want to spend, like, theoretically $250 million on a gold-plated room while we're in the middle of continuing inflation. They came in and fired everybody in Doge, which I'm gonna come back to in a minute, et cetera. So he says, oh, don't worry, it's not gonna cost the taxpayers any money. First of all, I don't believe him. But okay, let's say that they did get privately financed, and that's not impossible. To be honest, there's some chance that Trump is telling the truth on this.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, but you know what they're gonna do, according to some of the reporting? Then they're gonna put up big plaques in the White House for those donors. So this room in the People's House, brought to you by the disgusting pigs at Palantir, who are going to spy on you, and we perfected it in Israel. Don't worry, we know how to
oppress the citizens perfectly. So now we're going to bring that over here, and we now own a part of the White House. And whoever else, it's like now the White House needs those NASCAR type of logos like our politicians. And so I don't want those logos inside the White House. They're a stain on this country. So it's a lose-lose to me. I don't want the private donors putting their stupid mugs and paraphernalia and their logos all over the White House. And I also don't want the taxpayers paying for it. And do we need a 90,000 square foot golden ballroom? And especially, Anna, when Doge came in, they're like, you're fired, fired, fired. You're normal, average Americans, you're fired. We're firing everyone. Now government shutdown, nobody gets paid except the politicians. So now everybody hasn't gotten paid for 2-3 weeks, right? But don't worry, we're building a golden ballroom brought to you by Palantir and other dirtbags who control our politicians. I wonder if AIPAC's gonna chip in. This ballroom in America brought to you by the Israeli lobby. I don't know. Palantir's already close enough to them. So I hate it. I can't stand it.
I remember the several times I've been in DC, I really wanted to tour the White House. It is so hard to get approval as an American citizen to tour the White House. So I guess, and maybe people aren't gonna like that I'm gonna say this, but it's genuinely how I feel, and I wanna be honest with you. I don't really care about the White House. I'm never gonna be able to step foot in it. It's not the people's house. It hasn't been the people's house in a really long time. This country has been taken over by corporate greed. Trump is just a mere symptom of that. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you're gonna see corporate logos all over the White House. But if that bothers you, don't let it bother you too much, because you're probably not gonna step foot in the White House either. That's the way I see it. Yeah,
I think it should bother you to your core. I hate that our government has been sold off part by part, dirty politician by dirty politician. Now they're selling off the White House and destroying it in the meanwhile. So let's get this right. So he riles up a whole bunch of people to attack the Capitol, and now he's halfway destroyed the White House.
Yeah.
And guys, the East Wing is never coming back. They already destroyed it. Nobody got any say in it except a couple of people. They never even told us, to this day, they haven't told us the plans. What are you gonna do with it? They're like, oh, don't worry, we're not gonna touch the East Wing. We already destroyed it. I know, because you're a destroyer.
So Jesse Waters weighed in on this. I haven't seen this, well, I haven't seen the video yet. Obviously you haven't either. Apparently he's saying that Trump is unchecked. So he might agree with you, Cenk. We're about to find out.
Yeah, I saw it, go ahead.
The Democrats are upset because Trump is so unconstrained. And he's so ambitious, and he's wielding executive power so confidently. And none of their presidents ever did, and nothing they can do can check his power.
Does he like that?
Yeah,
does he think that's a good thing?
Of course he does. No, he did it twice on Fox News.
Okay, well, if that was a Democratic president, he would be singing a completely different tune.
Are you kidding me? If Biden destroyed half the White House like this and said, oh, don't worry, trust me. Which, by the way, he said a lot and we hated it, right? Oh, don't worry, I'll pass progressive policies later. Don't worry, I'll keep Israel in check later. So no, I don't trust Biden. I would never trust him to do this kind of clownish project without consulting with anyone else. And I don't trust Trump. And so, don't worry, he's a real estate expert. Went bankrupt 6 times. Couldn't build a thing if his life depended on it. You know all the Trump Tower, all that stuff that it's happened in like the last decade or longer? He didn't build any of those. They just pay him to put his name on it, because when he builds things, he screws it up so royally. Did he do any due diligence on this? There's no way that he did. That's why they said, oh, don't worry, we're not gonna touch the East Wing. Then they started hammering away at the East Wing. And now today they say, oh, we're destroying the entire thing. You know why? Because he doesn't know what he's doing. He didn't have a plan in the beginning. So, and Jesse Waters, yeah, he loves it. Look, guys, again, fair is shown in America. There's one thing that Jesse Waters is saying there that I do agree with. I watched the 2 times that he talked about it on Fox News. Yeah, Biden and the Democrats are purposely weak and incompetent. So they just come in and go, oh, there's nothing we can do. Yeah, you got the House, the Congress, the Senate, the White House, why don't you do something? And Democrats never ever do anything. Is Trump confident? Does he take aggressive action? Yes, he does. And if he was taking it on our behalf, meaning the entire country, then that would be great. I want a president who's active. But when he's doing it on his own behalf, oh, I took great action. I told the Justice Department to pay me $230 million. I took action, I destroyed the East Wing without it telling anyone. And we don't know what the plans are for my grotesque ballroom so I could feel like I'm in a golden palace.
palace and I'm a king and it's Versailles or whatever he thinks it is. Oh, I sold off the White House to donors. Oh, oops, I don't want him taking that kind of action. I want him taking action on behalf of the American people. And where is it? What's the one thing he passed? Tax cuts for the rich. Of course. And giant corporate subsidies, giant addition to the Pentagon, pork after pork after pork. So for all this tough guy talk, at the end of the day, he's a standard slimy politician. All he's ever done is deliver for the donors. And right now, he's looking to take half of Gaza and give it to Israel because they're also his donors. So all he does is donor, 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 donor. So now they've soiled the White House.
All right, Cenk is gonna have two incredible interviews next. Who are you talking to again, Cenk?
So we're gonna talk about an American kid that Israel basically kidnapped in the middle of the night. It's been over 6 months. They made up some BS charge, pretended that he confessed. I don't even, about throwing a rock. Wow. And they're like, no, we don't care that he's an American. And the American embassy says, we don't care that he's an American. He's not an Israeli. If he was an Israeli, we would care. But Americans are dirt. So we're not gonna get him. We're gonna talk to his uncle. And then after that, George Santos is gonna join us. So real conversation, let's find out, what he says about this. And now the New York State's looking to put him back in prison. So we'll ask him about that as well. So it should be very interesting. So crowdsourcing the revolution is next. Everybody stay here. It's free, available to everyone. And part of that is talking to this uncle about how do we get our kids back from Israel? When Israel kidnaps our kids, how do we get them back? Or when they try to rape our kids as they did in Vegas, how do we get justice? That would be amazing. All right, we'll do that when we return. All right, guys, welcome to Crowdsourcing the Revolution. I don't know if that's exactly what we should be calling it. I'll figure it out later. So anyways, look, we've been working on a couple of things together, and we welcome all ideas. We've been saying that a bunch of you have come up with good ideas. And like, so for example, one of the things I'd love to do is
how do we actually get the real Epstein files? I know they're going to eventually seat the congresswoman from Arizona, and they're going to release some files, but we all know that they're not going to release the real people who did it. Everybody knows that, right? There's no way in the world they're going to tell us that one of the intelligence agencies did it, when it's like, at this point, 90% likely that one of the intelligence agencies did it. I loathe the fact that our government doesn't represent us 1%. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. So now today, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to talk to someone who actually had their nephew, an American, basically taken by the Israelis, a 15-year-old kid, and the Israelis won't return him. Of course, because they rule us. Oh no, you're not allowed to say it. I said it. Okay, so one of you guys did a great job. First of all, tyt.com/hope. So we synthesized everything into that URL. So if you got the ideas, you can go to the place that says we want your ideas on tyt.com/hope, and you can join the working group. They're helping to organize all the activity behind the scenes. And so that's also on tyt.com/hope. And tonight they're meeting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, so check that out. You can join through that. And one of you guys went to ask Debbie Dingell to join the bill to lower drug prices. I want to show that real quick because I love that you're taking action in the real world. Let's watch that.
Voters
Number
to
one
protect government,
is
something that
the
sounds good.
HR 3493 bill. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called the Global Fairness in Drug Pricing Bills. It's actually a Trump executive order.
I have introduced every time I can.
Rokon had just introduced it, and we're looking for bipartisan support. We've got.
The drug pricing bill. 6 months ago, what we would be talking about today, and that is the militarization of the national
He is right on this one. I'm not a supporter, but this one is gaining a lot of traction. I just ask you to look into it.
We had 3 parents. I have a bill that says.
I know.
In America, you should not pay any more than another country. We are working on
that's
that.
the truth. And number two, just if I could ask you to look into a group called Justice Democrats. Takes no corporate PAC money and just completely. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Take care.
All right, hey, Cara, can you tell me who did that? Because that was beautiful. That's Debbie Dingell, Congresswoman, Democratic Congresswoman from Michigan. He politely asked her about HR 3493. She says, well, I got my own bill on it. Okay, by the way, when they say that, they go, oh, that's terrific. So could you also co-sponsor this one? And you know what? And by the way, we'll then talk to others who are co-sponsoring 3493. And maybe they could also co-sponsor other bills, right? So that's a little bit of normal politics, but just because you have your own bill doesn't mean that you can't co-sponsor another bill. Well, why not do all of it? Look, I'm in contact with a congressman who's a Democrat who's considering this, and so they've got some slight issues around, oh, well, it's not clear enough. I know it's a Trump executive order, but guys, we've got to do something. So if Debbie Dingell's bill is just sitting there and nobody's acting on it, and other bills are all sitting there and nobody's doing anything about it, then what's the point? Is it the point just to say, anyway, but overall, she didn't do anything wrong. Sean Breyer is the guy who did that video. Way to go, Sean. That was excellent, okay? And so keep asking these Congress people. Eventually it'll get through to them. That's a beautiful beginning. I love it. All right, now let's go to the interview. So we're talking to Ziad Kadur. He is the uncle of Mohammed Ibrahim, who was basically taken in the middle of the night by the Israelis when he was 15 years old. He's an American citizen, and we barely know what kind of condition he's in. So Ziad, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So, brother, where do you guys where are you right now? Are you in America?
Yeah, I'm in Florida.
Florida, right? So this kid, was he born here in America?
Yes.
Born in Florida?
Born in Palm Bay, Florida, yes.
Palmdale, Florida, okay. So he went to go visit family in the West Bank, is that what was happening?
Yeah, he was here in January, visiting Tampa and in California. His brother lives in Tampa and his sisters live in California. He went back overseas late January and was abducted February 16th.
So they come in the middle of the night, they take just him. He's 15 years old at that point. They came at like 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, right? So at that point, your brother is the dad, right?
Yeah, he's my first cousin. But
first cousin's the dad.
We're closer than brothers.
Yeah. So what do you guys do at that point? Do you beseech the American embassy? How do you try to get Mohammed back?
So at 4 a.m., he was drug out of his bedroom. He was asleep. 25 to 30 soldiers, ski masks, M16s, pounded on the door. The father opened the door. Mohammed was asleep. They asked him who was at home with him. He said, me, my wife, and my son and my daughter. They said, your son? He said, yeah, my son. They said, where's his bedroom at? He said, it's over there. They said, we need to see him. The father opened the door. The young man was asleep, and they woke him up. They blindfolded him. They zip tied him, and they carried him out to a military vehicle, a Jeep. And that's the last we saw of him. That was February 16th around 4 a.m.
So here
immediately, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Here we are in late October, right? So that's the last time anyone in the family has actually seen him with their own eyes?
That's the very last time, yes.
So they're not allowing any visitation? They're not, any videos, anything?
No, we tried to see if we could write him letters, visit him in person at the prisons. He's been in 2 prisons the last 8 months. And initially he was at an interrogation center. The issue we're having is he's a civilian that was taken from his home, but he was taken to a military prison, a military interrogation center with a military prosecutor and a military judge. So it's really difficult in the West Bank to have some type of due process for your imprisoned ones. And it's even harder for the children, let alone an American child who was only 15 years old at the time.
So, okay, they take him. The Israelis are thugs, so they're not going to give you any, they due process in the West Bank. They treat the Palestinians as subhuman. So that's not surprising. But he's an American kid. So I assume you guys went to the US embassy, US officials, and what happened there?
Immediately at 8 a.m., we made 2 phone calls, one to the US embassy and one to the lawyers in the West Bank. The US embassy took his passport information, his address, the father's telephone number, and it took them almost 2 months to get their first visit and check on his well-being. The lawyers couldn't get us anywhere because first of all, there was still an investigation going on. We later found out that 3 other children between the ages of 15 and 16 were taken the same night, and they were accused of rock throwing. But the way we understood it, they weren't sure which person threw the rock. We only know it wasn't Mohammed, it was somebody else.
So he was next to a kid who threw a rock, and you guys haven't seen him in now how many months? It's 7 months? 8 months?
No, it's been over 8 months. It's been, so October 16th was 8 months.
So they round up a bunch of kids for daring to throw rocks. For one of them throwing a rock at one of the biggest militaries in the world that has nuclear weapons and Iron Dome, but they love to terrorize Palestinians. But this is an American. So how much did our government fight back to get this American kid?
So, initially we brought it up as not just an American, but as a minor. He's a child. But we also had another surprise, sadly. In mid-July, Muhammad's first cousin, Saifullah Musalet, was visiting from Tampa also. He was ambushed by over 11 Israeli settlers who beat him with sticks and rocks to death. And while he was still breathing, an ambulance came to help him. The IOF blocked the ambulance for 2 hours and 40 minutes. And then when they released the ambulance to go pick up Saifullah, who was 20 years old at the time, the settlers attacked the ambulance, busted out the windshield, the windows, the driver got injured. And unfortunately, Saifullah, my other nephew, passed away 5 minutes before entering the ambulance. So there was no accountability. There was complete impunity to the settlers to kill a 20-year-old American from Tampa who serves ice cream for a living. At the same time, the double standard of a 15-year-old in prison who's accused of being near somebody throwing a rock. So it's shocking to understand that they can come and kill you, but you throwing a rock, you're a criminal.
Yeah, okay, so I think we have a picture of Saifullah. Let's see if we can put that up. So now, that's an American that lives in Tampa, murdered by Israeli settlers. So has Marco Rubio or anyone in our government, Mike Huckabee, shown any kind of outrage and a demand for justice on behalf of America?
So that issue we're taking a little bit more personally because we're from Florida, and Marco Rubio, was our senator, and now he's a Secretary of State. But he's also, I think, Cuban American, and we're Palestinian American, and they have a great relationship. This administration has a great relationship with Israel and the Prime Minister. So we expected more from Governor DeSantis and Marco Rubio, because from what we understood, they flew back 1,500 American Israelis on chartered flights during the Iran-Israel conflict, but they couldn't add Muhammad to the list. Mike Huckabee, Ambassador Huckabee, visited our village, and our village is 72 to 73% American. We have about 8,000 people in our population overseas, but we have over 16,000 here in the States. So Huckabee came to pay his condolences, and he sat with two fathers, Kamal Musalet, which is Saifullah's father, and Hafid Abdul-Jabbar, which is Tawfiq Abdul-Jabbar's father. Tawfiq was shot in the back of the head while sitting in the front seat of his vehicle by an Israeli sniper in January 2023. So, you have two American fathers sitting with the ambassador, explaining to him that, our children are gone, you can't bring them back. And no one was held accountable. At the same time, Zahir Ibrahim, Muhammad's father, is sitting with Mr. Huckabee and saying, you can still save my son. You can't bring those two back. But there's still a possibility that you can help our son who's still alive.
So, okay, I'm glad that he at least came by and, for condolences. It's more than I would have expected from a guy who unilaterally supports Israeli terrorists over and over again. But has there been any call for justice? Is the settlers who killed Saifullah been arrested? Are they going to go to trial? Is there an outrage from the American government that an American was murdered like that?
No, so we've been advocating since July. I just got back from DC last night. I was there for Action Week, which was sponsored by AMP and AJP. And, there was 600 people in the delegation knocking doors, visiting offices, senators, congressmen, representatives, demanding justice for Saifullah. But, in September, I was on another delegation with IMEU and CCR in Washington. And the two fathers were with me, Kamal, Saifullah's father, and Hafid, Tawfiq's father. But also somebody who joined us was Cindy and Craig Corey, the parents of Rachel Corey. And they've been doing this for over 23 years, and no one's been held accountable. And as of recent, Ozden and Hamid, Ozden is the sister of Aisha Noor, a Turkish American from Washington, and her husband Hamid visited from Washington State, and they met us in DC. So we had these trailblazers walking the halls of Congress and the Senate with us. One just from a year ago, one from a year and a half ago, and all the way back to 23 years ago. So we saw what was coming as a family. We weren't blind, but when your hands are tied, and the most you can do is go to the media and go to the papers and go to social media and advocate in Washington, then, you do your part and demand justice and accountability, whether it's on, deaf ears or whether, people ignore you. and we acknowledge that some senators are trying to help, and we appreciate that. Today, a congressional letter led by Senator Van Hollen and Merkley was sent to the White House and to the administration, specifically naming Marco Rubio and Ambassador Huckabee, and the signatures and the description of what they are demanding was on there, and that was released today.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, show you guys who's on that letter. I'm going to show you more Americans that Israel has murdered and gotten away with. By the way, he's referring to a Christian American who was killed. Muslim Americans were killed. Never any justice, ever. The minute an Israeli is concerned, oh my God, chartered jets, spend American taxpayer money. The Israelis have to be protected. The Israelis are so much more important than the American citizens. So in this case, what we're saying is hashtag free our child. That's an American child that Israel has kidnapped, 8 months. Nobody's got any contact with him. His family can't see him. Free our child. Release a 16-year-old Mohammed Ibrahim now. You see Marco Rubio's handles there on Facebook, on X. So it's a demand for Marco Rubio. How about you try to represent Americans for the first time in your life, Marco Rubio? I got it. You got millions of dollars from Larry Ellison, from Israeli super PACs, and you work for Israel. But it'd be nice if every once in a while, when an American is murdered or kidnapped by the thug terrorists at the IDF, that you actually cared about Americans. I know, too much to ask for from our occupied government. So let me show you all the other Americans murdered by Israel. Shireen Abu Akleh, Palestinian-American journalist, very famous. Maybe probably the most famous Palestinian journalist, and that's probably why they murdered her, a sniper shot. It's an assassination by the IDF. She's a civilian and a reporter and an American, and they murdered her in cold blood, no accountability. Tawfiq Abdul Jabbar, he's 17 years old, Palestinian American, US citizen, murdered, no accountability. Ahmed Mohammed Kadur, also 17, tiny kid, murdered, US citizen, no accountability. Ayşenur Ezgi Egi, she's a Turkish American, murdered by the Israelis, no accountability. By the way, sometimes they say, oh, Cenk, why don't you go to Israel? I'm a Turkish American just like her. Israel could murder me on the spot and almost certainly would. I'm an American journalist and a Turkish American? Oh my God, and they put my name on an IDF bomb. The IDF would almost certainly murder me, and the American government would almost certainly say, so what? He's just an American. How are the Israelis doing? Are they okay? Are the Israelis okay? Oh yeah, murder any American you like. More Americans murdered. Amr Mohammed Sada Rabi, 14 years old, from New Jersey, murdered, and no accountability. And Saifullah, you already heard about, and then Kamasel Ayad, 40 years old, US citizen from Illinois, murdered, no accountability. Israel is above the law. They can kill American citizens. They attacked the USS Liberty. They stole our nuclear secrets. They have a 16-year-old American child that they've kidnapped on trumped up nonsense charges about how he saw someone else throw a rock at a tank or whatever the hell he threw it at, even if you believe them, because they are giant liars. They never tell the truth. All they do is propaganda. So here's the folks who wrote the letter or sent the letter in. Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland has been an absolute American hero. He actually cares about Americans, and he's been fighting super hard on this. Jeff Merkley, is our guest pointed out, great job there. And you see the other Democrats there, Adam Schiff. Wow, Adam Schiff cares about an American, wow. So this is getting a lot of traction. Senator Tim Kaine, etc. Let's show you some of the Congress people now. And more senators as well. Senator Raphael Warnock, Greg Casar, the head of the Progressive Caucus, Rashida Tlaib, Jerry Nadler, Bernie Sanders, so Ron Wyden. These are all, and last one here, Pramila Jayapal, Ed Markey, Tammy Duckworth. So a lot of giant names on here. And by the way, you'll notice heroic Jewish Americans fighting for America and not for a different country. This never has to do with religion. Israel doesn't care if you're Christian, Muslim, or Jewish. They only care about their nationalism and how their government and their country is more important than any other government, and that America should be subservient to them. Free our child. That's an American child. Doesn't mean anything to be an American.
That's the test here. Because if our government doesn't go to rescue an American child from, by the way, some of the places they've kept them. So Zaya, let me just go back and finish up with you on this. There's some of the places they've kept them are places where they've done grotesque torture. And so I'm super worried about it. So do you have any idea when he's going to be released? Did they do a trial? Are they ever going to let him go?
So a couple things. I want to start with the list of names you mentioned. I spent a few days in DC with those families, those Americans. And we have to understand that this is not random anymore. This is becoming systematic, that Americans are being killed and no one has been charged. On the flip side of it, the prisons that you're mentioning, Megiddo, Ophir, and other places, those places are notorious. Human rights organizations across the world have reported, the torture, the suffering, the hunger. And Muhammad is one of them, and he's not the only one. This is not just about Muhammad or about Saifullah. These are just two drops in the ocean of, people who suffered under, this occupation. But Muhammad himself, his health is very questionable. We understand that he lost a quarter to a third of his weight. He's a petite 16-year-old. He was supposed to be here getting his driver's license and, what regular 16-year-olds do, summer job and things like that. Now we're concerned about his weight. He contracted scabies. It started off on his leg and it reached his entire body, even his hands. The last, update we got that he had a low BMI. So it went from what he used to weigh to just low BMI. And this information I'm sharing with you, because as I told you, we haven't seen him, we haven't visited him. This is information from the State Department and the US Embassy in Jerusalem. So there's no rumors or hearsay. These are facts. These are documented, timestamped through emails and communications through the governments, both the Israeli and the American. But the bigger picture here is, you mentioned all these Americans who are killed. These two kids, their moms are sisters. And they're Americans. Our family already buried one child, and we don't want Muhammad to join the list of the names that you just mentioned earlier. We can still save him. And, during the delegation, one of the members of the organizations said, Ziad, it's crazy because this is a layup, a simple basket where somebody could kind of pound on their chest and say, we got this kid out. We shouldn't be here 8 months later talking about Muhammad. We shouldn't be talking, we should be talking about humanitarian aid, medicine, rebuilding, basic human rights. But just yesterday, Jasper Nathaniel, an independent journalist, an American from New York, who's a Jewish man, was in our village doing a story about Muhammad and Saifullah and the other Americans in our area who were killed. And it was oil harvest season. And he barely made it out alive. But a woman in her late 60s or early 70s was attacked by the settlers and hit on her head and clubbed. And after she fell unconscious, they continued to beat her.
Yeah.
So this is happening to Palestinians, Jews, Americans, everybody.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with runaway nationalism. So those settlers are lunatics. They think that God whispered in their ear, and that's why they have to kill the Palestinians, drive them from the land, and steal the land on behalf of God. What kind of sacrilege is that? Okay, no, God didn't talk to you and tell you to beat a 60, 70-year-old woman over the head with a club. We showed that on the Young Turks a couple of days ago. It's unbelievable. And again, a heroic Jewish American going there to document what's happening to Palestinians and Palestinian Americans. End on this, hashtag free our child. Mohammed Ibrahim should, Zaya, go ahead, sorry.
I'd like to tell you, in our delegations, Jewish Americans were standing with us. Their faith has also been hijacked by the Zionists and everything else. And about the promises and the whispers, they also whispered something back. They promised God that they shall not steal, they shall not kill, thou shall not lie. So, good Jewish people's religion is also being hijacked, just like our land and our children.
100%. They use them as human shields. Oh no, you can't criticize us because we're hiding behind Jewish civilians. No, Jewish civilians have been terrific throughout this, right? Here in America. That's not the issue. It's ultra-nationalist lunatics and terrorists inside Israel and the West Bank, and now Gaza doing all the damage. Mohammed Ibrahim should be in Florida at a Dairy Queen right now. He should be doing the things that American kids do, playing baseball, hanging out with his friends at the mall, going to a movie. Instead, he's rotting away and picking up diseases and wasting away in an Israeli gulag because our government won't really help to get him out, even though he's an American child. Hashtag free our child. Make sure you let Marco Rubio know about it. And you should let Marco Rubio know that, hey, you might want to represent America. You're the American Secretary of State. I know you're obsessed with your beloved Israel that has bribed you with millions and millions and millions of dollars. We all know. And wouldn't it be amazing if we had Americans representing Americans instead of Israeli stooges that betray Americans and our children on behalf of their donors? Okay, brother, I'm so sorry that you had to go through this. Ziad Kodur, thank you for joining us, brother, and we hope we can get Mohammed back as soon as possible. God help you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
No problem. All right, guys, we're gonna take a super quick break here. George Santos is gonna join us when we come back. All right, welcome back to the Young Turks. We got an amazing interview for you guys now. Former Congressman and convicted felon George Santos joins us. George, welcome.
Hi, Cenk. How are you? Long time no talk.
Yep. We talked before the election, and here we are. And you've gone to prison in the meanwhile. So you were convicted on a great number of charges: 7 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, making materially false statements. And you went to prison for it. First, let me just ask you, how was prison?
Well, prison was awful. And anyone who thinks prison is anything other than awful, then you have a wild thing coming for you. But awful doesn't mean it needs to be inhumane or dehumanizing, and that was my experience at the care of Warden Kelly down in FCI Ferreton. Now, again, I don't know other prisons. I haven't prison hopped, and I know that that's a term that you probably might not be familiar with, but it is a real thing in the BOP system. Some inmates, they move around a lot and whatnot. So that's all I know. My experience was horrid. I don't think prisons should be. I mean, there was a former discredited source who had made lambastic accusations of death threats against me back in 2023 resurfaced now with new allegations that she had uncovered that there was somebody attempting to break into prison to murder me. And then this was made public, and for protective custody purposes and for protection, the warden placed me under what they called protective custody. Now, protective custody, you would think they're protecting you. Unfortunately, they put you in the same place that they would put somebody who got into a fight, bought in contraband, stabbed somebody, which is the SHU, the Special Unit, also known as AGSEG, or commonly known as solitary confinement. So I sat there for 41 days with only ability to take 3 showers a week, no access to any outside communication other than one 15-minute phone call every 30 days. No ability to email my family, no ability to have any independence. I mean, I was drinking water from the top of a toilet bowl that had metallic sediments falling into the bottom of the cup. There were rats and mice trapped in the light fixture on top of my head, running around. I mean, this is the United States, and that's not what prison should look like, nor a place where you expect people to be rehabilitated so that they can re-enter society. That's a place where you make people angry, frustrated, and hence the reason for recidivism. So it's just insane.
Yeah, so solitary confinement is unacceptable. It's a form of torture, and that shouldn't have happened. So now let's go on to your charges. So obviously President Trump commuted your sentence. You were supposed to serve 7 years, you served 84 days. First, I want to understand, you pled guilty, so you're supposed to pay back $375,000 in restitution. Have you done that?
I have not done so. I don't have the means at the time, but even though I'm not required to, I've made the decision with my legal team that I will do so once the means are available. But most importantly, they need to figure out how to explore this and how to do it, because we don't have a legal vehicle or avenue to do so. So when the time comes, I mean, they are working on it. And when the time comes, I will make sure I come back on television and I will make sure that everybody knows, and I'll give receipts that it has been paid. The only way I move forward with my life and continue to do what I want to do, which is good, is also by closing that one last door in my past of my transgressions. So it is something I will work towards, absolutely.
So when your sentence is commuted, does that mean you technically don't have to pay the money back and you're doing this?
There's several ways of clemency. I guess the one that avenue, it's either a pardon or a commutation, and this is part of that process. It's how it's written in the law. But I've been asked the question, it's been posed to me many times. Again, I don't have any legal obligation, but I do have what I'm calling a moral obligation. And if I want to make sure people understand I've changed with my, after this experience, I think the best way is to start with my actions. And I think that would be a great action and a good first foot forward. So that's why I want to do it. Again, I don't have the means at the moment. I just got out of prison. I am just going to work on rebuilding everything in my life. And as soon as I have the means, I will start making that effort. And hopefully we can find a legal vehicle and avenue to do so without harassing anybody who should be receiving funds back from my campaign misuses. And that's just really the only thing I can say at the time. I mean, this is so recent, but I just wanted to give you a solid answer on what I intend to do and what I plan to do. Granted, I can have a legal way to do so.
All right, I mean, the folks that are representing the victims, the prosecutors say that you've got $400,000 from Cameo. So how do we know when you've had enough? And George, let's be honest, given your record of not being great at telling the truth, how in the world can we trust you that you're actually gonna pay them?
Cenk, I think, a lot of people don't understand. Prosecutors love to make their case sexy and they do inflate things. The timeline doesn't coincide with with the facts. I did earn a total of $400,000 gross from Cameo in December of 2023. However, I had not pled guilty nor had been ordered restitution at that point. And all of that money was dispersed for my legal defense. So it's just not true. That they conveniently might have said in the papers and in the filings, in the motions that you're reading that, but they failed to outline the timeline. I took a plea deal in August of 2024. And
so is that money gone already? Did you spend it already?
Of course, I had to pay my counsel. I had 3 attorneys, and all that money went to legal.
I got you. Do you get that a lot of people think that this is a gross injustice, that you didn't have to serve your 7-year sentence like anyone else, and presumably because you kissed up to Donald Trump?
Well, I question you this. Did you know that a lot of Democrats, including sitting members of Congress and in the Senate, thought that it was a grossly politically charged sentence, 7 years and 3 months for a first-time nonviolent white-collar crime offense, and the only explanation is politics. So I
no, there's a lot of explanations. No, George, you pled guilty to these crimes.
I understand. Let me finish my point here, and to give you comparison. And I'm going to give you a Democrat and a Republican. Former Representative Michael Grimm received 18 months for $900,000 of concealing income while he was in Congress. And then former Congressman Jesse Jackson, a Democrat in Illinois, received a 30-month sentence after he was found guilty of stealing over $500,000 for his own personal benefit. I come in at $373,000, and I am found guilty. I plead guilty, obviously, and I'm given 7 years and 3 months.
Okay, so
there's no equity.
So are you okay to go back for 30 months like the other congressman?
I'm gonna answer you this way. The power of clemency is plenary, and it's up to the president. The president chose to do this, and he has the right to do it. I love that everybody's questioning it. I would have loved to seen everybody this passionate when former presidents commuted or pardoned former allies like President Clinton did, like President Biden did. So
yes.
I think,
good news. Well, good news. We were just as outraged by that. Mark Rich is the guy you're talking about with Bill Clinton. He was a donor to Bill Clinton, and he was pardoned at the end. It was disgusting. Obviously, Hunter Biden pardoned by Joe Biden, and the list goes on. But it doesn't excuse what you did. So there's
I'm not saying excuses. I'm just saying that the outrage there on the pardon. It seems to be very one-sided when it's for Republicans, but Democrats, the outrage maybe makes it one day of news. I know I'm going to be in the long haul for weeks of news coverage.
George, you know why though? You know why? Because you have an enormous record of lying, and then you got caught here. You got sentenced. You think your sentence was a little too long, but now everybody agrees it's way too short because of the commutation. So, like, don't pretend you don't know. Okay, so speaking of that, let's go to Richard Ossoff. He's a retired Navy veteran, and he says you defrauded him out of $3,000 and his dog died because you didn't spend that on the dog. Instead, you kept it for yourself. So how do you answer that, brother? How do you give him justice?
That's a very simple question. I'll answer it. I've answered it before. In the year 2014, Richard Ossoff reached out to a volunteer, Andrea, out in Jersey, who reached out to me. We wanted to help the dog. The dog had, again, Sapphire, gorgeous little pit bull dog. I love animals. I have a stellar record of rescuing animals. And Mr. Ossoff disagrees with the outcome here, but he allowed the dog to get to a point of almost no return. We raised some money for the dog. It wouldn't cover the surgery. And even if we had done the surgery, she had only a 15% chance of survival. We have everything documented from that. And I didn't keep the money for myself. The money was spent on other animals that needed the help. Cenk, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars in my life helping animals. I have receipts. I have countless people who reach out to me with pictures of dogs that I've helped rescue and place. So Mr. Ossoff didn't like the result. Mr. Ossoff is a veteran. I thank him for his service. I have never in my life would I hurt a veteran, let alone a dog. So it's not black and white, and more so to prove that I have never been even indicted or investigated, nor there has been any mention of that in any of my legal challenges in the past on this case. So I just want to make this very, very clear. I feel for Mr. Ossoff, I feel for Sapphire, but I also want to say that I'm not the boogeyman and monster that everybody wants to say. I do not swindle veterans, I do not hurt animals. That is a fact, and I'm not going to sit and take this one. Have I transgressed in the past? Hell yes. Have I Have I been not truthful? Absolutely. And I take that responsibility and I move forward with it. You asked me a question, will I do the right thing? Yes, I will do the right thing and do my best efforts to get the means to go ahead and out there and make right, because I want to make right. I want to focus on doing good. And that's what I'm going to do. I won't be deterred, however, by sensationalism of people trying to create stories that are just not factual.
Yeah, you can understand why people don't trust you. So
I get it.
Okay.
I get it.
So are you thinking of ever going back into politics?
Absolutely not in an elected capacity. I'm uninterested. It's not something that's really effective. It's not something that really yields results. I mean, look, the government shut down because Democrats seem to want to keep the government shut down and not negotiate. I'm not in a position of net negative. I rather take my time and do what I've committed myself to do, which is prison reform, which I learned a great deal in 84 days. And I've seen what a corrupt, derelict in duty administrator at a facility can do to cause harm, pain, and also lack of rehabilitation and cause more anger, which leads to recidivism that we have in this country at an all-time high. And not to mention that we also need to focus on something else that I want to do, which is troubled youth. We need to invest in our youth in inner cities where they're underdeveloped, under opportunity. They don't have opportunities because there are none, because our politicians are failing. So instead of going to the problem, I'm going to go work on the solution. And the solution is working out here and holding politicians accountable so that we can do the right thing for Americans and reduce our prison population in this country.
The one upside of white collar criminals and former politicians going to prison is they bring attention to how awful prison is when they come back. No one cares when it's an average person, an average American who's brutalized in prison. But I guess they're going to care a little bit because you were, and I didn't want that happening to you. So now look, President Trump commuted your sentence. There's an American hero he has not pardoned. His name is Edward Snowden. So do you think he should do likewise and pardon Edward Snowden?
I honestly do not know who Mr. Stone is. I'm sorry if I missed that. If you want to educate me on it, I'd love to read up on it and I can get back to you on that.
All right, that's amazing. Okay, so he's the one that released the warrantless wiretapping, leaked it so that we all know that the government was abusing our privacy and is now in hiding because both Democratic and Republican presidents have hounded him to the end of the earth for being an American hero. Okay, last thing. Look, general question, George. Like, you're gonna say a bunch of things like, okay, you're gonna help prison reform, all these things that you just said. You're gonna, say, hey, I don't know if you're ever gonna try to raise money again for whatever project, but how could anyone ever trust you again with any words or giving you $1? I mean, after all the things you admitted you did.
Cenk, I mean, you'd be surprised, and I'm happy to report that I've had an influx of people wanting to get involved with prison reform. And I have already pledges, and I haven't taken a penny because I will not manage it, but I'm working on establishing a foundation or whatever vehicle it's going to be of nonprofit to do this work and help people. But I have people reaching out to me. I haven't reached out to a single person asking for a penny because I have nowhere to put it. But there are people pledging millions of dollars as of today towards us. My attorney's talking to people. They're working on it. But we need to set up a vehicle. And I don't think anything is going to happen before the holidays. So stay tuned. And I'd love to have you on the board so you can be a great hawk. And this is an invitation to you, Cenk. Despite our differences, I think you and I would agree very well that prison reform is an imperative thing and it's a bipartisan need. And I'd invite you to sit on the board so that you can be a great custodian of the finances that we're going to raise. But I am happy to say that I have an import of people offering to help because they like the message I'm sending out.
That is stunning that people would want to give you millions of dollars. But I love prison reform. I think it's absolutely necessary. I don't know why it's acceptable. I don't know why it's acceptable to do torture through solitary confinement. I don't know why it's acceptable or a joke that there's rape in prisons. That's not civilized, that's not American. So if you are offering me a board seat there, I will consider it.
And I look forward to it. I want to set a bipartisan organization where everybody can come together and put all the garbage rhetoric aside and do something that is good for the American people. We all need to be custodians of it. I don't want the financial responsibility for obvious reasons because I'd rather not have that, how can I say, albatross sitting on my head. So I'd rather do it in a very bipartisan fashion. 3 conservatives, 3 liberals. We'll put them on a board, let them be the judges and custodians of that, and we'll move forward in doing the messaging and what's right. Because you're right, there is no incentive to report violence, rape, and sexual abuse in prison, because here's what happens. You file something called a PREA report in prison. You as the victim are put in the shoe, which means now it's protective custody. So that means you're in solitary confinement. Make that make sense, Cenk. It does not work. It is broken, it needs reform. And this is an incumbent on any DOJ director, or pardon me, BOP director. This one, the former one, and the past ones. It's really an institutional issue that needs to be changed at these wardens who operate like their prisons are their kingdoms. And that's what we need to change. That is where the issue lies. We need to roll back the discretionary power that a lot of these administrators have, because they are corrupt, they have been institutionalized, and they do treat prisoners like subhuman garbage. And that is not what reforming people is about. That's why I'm taking this mission so seriously, because it's not a top of the chain issue. It's a literally mid-management issue, and that's where the issue really lies.
Yeah, the reason I would consider that your offer on the board is because I would want to make absolutely sure that that money goes to its intended purpose.
Absolutely.
All right, former Representative George Santos, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Cenk. It's a pleasure to be with you guys and your audience.
All right. Okay. I'm supposed to do a quick story. Okay. All right. Bonus episode. I'll think of a story in the next 5 seconds. And so members, we'll go over there right now.